He's sitting in a quiet convenience store, stuffing his face with burgers and soda after days without any food. Outside is a full-blown apocalypse, with zombies roaming the streets, everything as usual. But there's one strange thing. Zombies don't even notice him. It's like he doesn't exist to them. At first he's just happy to eat after days of hunger, but then he realizes something isn't right. Why are they ignoring him? And why does he feel stronger than before? To find out what's going on, let's go back to the beginning of that mess. This story starts in a shady operating theater, where two shady surgeons are running experiments on two living people who seem utterly injured. The surgeons inject both test subjects with a strange green liquid. Soon enough, the male test subject begins to suffer, with blood pouring out from every orifice. Eventually, whatever the surgeons injected into the poor guy proves too much to handle, and both test subjects supposedly die right there. One surgeon finally decides to give up on their research, realizing that after sacrificing so many people, all that awaited them was one failure after another. He knows from the start that this research had no real future. Before leaving, he makes it abundantly clear that he won't be part of it anymore. Dr. Shin seems to be the only person who doesn't believe their efforts have been futile. As far as he's concerned, the people they used for the tests were always supposed to die in a day or two. So it doesn't matter if they ended up dying a day early, as they contributed to the greater good of humanity. Shin then instructs his junior to leave the operating theater, as he plans to take care of the bodies himself. The junior doesn't say another word and leaves quietly. Shin, meanwhile, is still fixated on the belief that this research will eventually succeed. He's certain the only thing holding it back is the lack of proper test subjects. He knows without a doubt that the right subject for this experiment is still out there. Now let's cut to the main hero of this story. His name is Kang Yi-won, and his friend is Jinmin Hyung. These two work at a funeral home, taking care of dead bodies. After goofing around and eating, they decide to head to the hospital to claim the bodies. Once they arrive in the hospital, Yuan shows his business card to the attendant at the counter and introduces himself as Kang Yuan from Hanwoo Funeral Services. He had received a call about patients who passed away early that morning. His friend, Hyung, also joins him after stepping away for a quick bathroom break. Soon enough, they find themselves in the operating theater. The bodies they are there to claim just happen to be the same ones the surgeons were using for their experiments. Hyung confirms that the victims appear to be a father and daughter. The report states they died in a car accident. But one thing doesn't make sense to Yi-hwan. While the father's body is in bad shape, the girl's body is almost spotless. Aside from a wound on her arm, there are no signs of any surgeries performed. His friend reminds him they're not forensic experts, so they should stop worrying about things they shouldn't and focus on claiming the bodies. Yuan decides to take a look inside the girl's mouth. As he's doing so, he suddenly cuts his finger on her broken tooth. Anyhow, the next step is to move the bodies. As they start moving the father's body first, Yi-hwan suddenly notices that the wound on the girl's hand has disappeared. Of course, this shocks him like nothing else. He points out the healed wound to his friend, but before they can discuss it further, Yi-hwan is struck by a sharp, stinging pain that causes him to collapse. His friend grows worried and rushes over to support him. Meanwhile, Yi-hwan's condition only worsens. He's suddenly hit with immense and unbearable pain that makes him scream at the top of his lungs. It seems some infection has entered his bloodstream through the cut from the girl's broken tooth. His heart feels like it's going to explode, and his entire body is so hot that it feels like he's being burned alive. He can sense he's dying if this pain keeps up. Eventually, he loses consciousness, leaving his worried friend crying like a child. Meanwhile, the girl begins to twitch and move. A while later, Yi-hwan opens his eyes. He has no idea what's going on. He notices the so-called dead girl banging her head against the door. Naturally, Yi-hwan is terrified to see the dead girl on her feet. As if that's not horrifying enough, he notices his friend's mangled, bloody body on the ground. Yi-hwan recoils in fear, panic seizing his heart and mind. For some reason, his hands are covered in blood as well. He then notices the girl looking at him, and they lock eyes for a moment. But she just twirls around and continues her creepy head banging. After staring at his friend's dead body, Yi-hwan looks back at his blood-stained hands. The sweet aroma of the blood filling the room is oddly enticing. The overwhelming stench of blood fills his nostrils, spreading across his tongue. The scene before him feels twisted and surreal. Suddenly, Yi-hwan notices his supposed dead friend groaning. Seeing this, he makes a desperate effort to wake him up, but there's no response. His friend seems to be deep in unconsciousness. Yi-hwan decides to take him with him, believing he might survive if he gets him the treatment he needs. It looks like the entire hospital is in shambles. Everywhere is stained with blood, and there's no one in sight. We then see only an old man crying in the corner while a girl lies dead nearby. The old man's face is glistening with sweat from the tension consuming his mind. He's sure that no one is coming to save them, which means the world outside this hospital is beyond saving now. He curses whoever might have caused this madness. Suddenly, he notices the secretary flinching, so he starts running out of the room, certain that if he stays, he'll die an unwanted death. Grabbing a golf club, he steels himself and ventures out of the room to leave the hospital for good. We cut back to the operating room. Yuan has finished putting his friend on a stretcher and is ready to take him to get treated. But Yuan feels weak and sluggish. His stomach hurts, as if his insides are twisting. The pain feels similar to the sensation of starvation. But this doesn't make sense. He had literally eaten lunch before coming to the hospital, so it hasn't been that long since he had his last meal. However, we all know that the starvation he's feeling isn't for food, it's probably for blood. Regardless, he steels himself and starts pushing his friend's stretcher. As he opens the door and steps outside, he comes across the scared old man holding a golf club. The old man is a blessing for Yuan. He quickly shouts for help, asking the doctor to treat his injured friend. Just then, that head-banging zombie girl zips past Yuan and runs straight toward the old man like a hungry and bloodthirsty monster. As the old man recoils in fear, more zombies emerge from another room and begin feasting on him. Yuan can do nothing but tremble as he stands there, witnessing this horrific scene. His friend, whom he was trying to rescue, stands up on his own feet. He walks toward the other zombies who are happily devouring the old man. When he reaches them, he sits down and sinks his teeth into the old man's head, joining the gruesome macabre feast. Yuan doesn't waste a second and hides behind the wall. He reflects on how his once goofy friend has now become this brainless zombie. For a moment, Yuan thinks he must be dreaming, because whatever is happening could not be real. He closes his eyes and concentrates, trying to wake up from this nightmare. But no luck, because it's certainly not a dream. He then notices that it's the 29th of April, even though it's supposed to be the 24th. If he's understanding this correctly, he lost consciousness for 5 whole days. He quickly reaches for his phone and confirms that it's indeed the 29th of April. His phone is filled with missed calls and unread text messages from his sister, Nuna. In the messages, she expresses concern about his well-being and pleads with him not to go outside, begging him to stay alive. Soon enough, his phone dies. While Yuan has no idea what's going on, that's not an excuse for him to sit there and do nothing. If he wants to save Nuna and Minhee, he has to leave the hospital at all costs. In some random convenience store, we see a girl crying in a quiet corner of the store. The area outside is infested with mindless zombies, hungry for blood, so all she can do is pray for a savior to come. We cut back to Yuan, who sprints down the hospital corridor and then the stairs. As he's descending, he locks eyes with that head-banging zombie girl. But eventually, he descends down and gets out of the hospital building. He's exhausted, and the hunger is finally overwhelming him. While he doesn't have time to stop and eat, he can't help it, because after being knocked out for several days, it's natural he's feeling hungry. He's so hungry that he might collapse, so he decides to find food first. As he scans the area, he spots a convenience store and without a second thought, enters the abandoned store. He starts devouring burgers and soda like there's no tomorrow. After finishing his meal, he finally feels satisfied. But then, he notices something strange about himself. It's odd that he didn't even stop to consider whether the food he was eating was spoiled. Furthermore, he usually hated convenience store food, so it's unusual for him to be eating it. His eyes suddenly fill with tears as he remembers his friend, who has now turned into a literal zombie. He recalls how his friend had always been curious about the existence of zombies, but now the poor guy has become one himself. As Yuan is drowning in sorrow over the loss of his friend, he suddenly notices commotion coming from a nearby storage room. He cautiously approaches the room and enters carefully. Inside, he sees the very girl we've seen in previous cuts. She cries out loudly, thinking a zombie is creeping up on her. Totally overwhelmed with fear and panic, she finally dares to look back, only to find Yuan forcing a smile on his face as he offers to help. Meanwhile, a zombie outside is making its way toward the convenience store. Inside, Yuan gathers some edible items and offers them to the hungry girl, who devours the food like there's no tomorrow. Seeing how fast she's eating, Yuan suggests she slow down, warning that she might upset her stomach. The girl, finally feeling satisfied after eating and drinking some water, thanks him and says she feels much better. Out of sheer curiosity, she asks him how he managed to get inside, which catches him off guard. He explains that he was so hungry he thought he needed to eat something, so he rushed into the convenience store. Of course, his explanation doesn't seem very convincing, especially considering how the place outside is overrun with mindless zombies. Suddenly, Yuan asks if he can find anything to charge his phone. She reminds him about some power banks in the store. Yuan decides to go get them and be on his way, but the girl begs him not to open the door because there are zombies outside. But Yuan reassures her that there were no zombies when he came in. But just as if summoned by fate, a zombie appears outside as soon as our boy opens the door. And once the zombie spots the human girl, it goes absolutely nuts with urges, charging toward her at full speed. However, since Yuan is standing between them, he shoves the monster away. He unintentionally shoves it so hard that the zombie flies through the air like a lightweight trash bag and skids across the floor. What Yiwan thought was a simple push turned out to be a deadly counterattack. The girl behind him is stunned by such power, while Yihuan is equally bewildered, having no idea where all this strength came from. The zombie that took the brunt of the attack is down for the count, and as the scene pans out, we realize just how powerful and messed up that push was. The zombie literally went through a glass window and was thrown about 15 feet away. Yihuan claims he definitely pushed the zombie with all his strength, but he didn't expect to knock it out like that. That's when he notices another curious detail. Throughout all his time running around, there hasn't been a single zombie that tried to attack him. The girl then questions him about the secret behind his immense strength. Interestingly, she calls him a jushi, a term in Korean used to address middle-aged men, which Yihuan definitely doesn't like. He doesn't want to be considered a creepy middle-aged man. Anyway, he remembers that he was supposed to grab a power bank, so he heads to the general goods section. Later, after charging his phone, he calls his sister, Nuna. But there's no response from her, which fills him with immense terror. He doesn't want to entertain the possibility that he might be too late to save her now. The image of Minhee and Nuna flashes before his eyes, and he feels tears well up. But he suddenly snaps out of these gloomy thoughts as he can't be sure of anything yet. It's possible that her phone just died and that she's hiding somewhere, waiting for help to arrive. So once again, he steels himself and decides to venture outside to find them. But before he can leave, he needs to figure out something with the girl in the convenience store. He asks her if she has a phone. She says yes, but it's dead. Yihuan promptly offers her a power bank and suggests she call her parents. A while later, she manages to connect with her mother, and tears fill her eyes as she speaks. She quickly reassures her mother about her well-being and current whereabouts. Her mother, relieved, is happy to know she's alive. The daughter also makes sure to attribute her well-being to the efforts of this ajushi who helped her. Once again, Yihuan is annoyed at being considered a creepy middle-aged man. Since he's only 28 years old, it feels unfair to be called that. Suddenly, the girl's mother warns her not to come back home, and with that, her mother hangs up on her, leaving the poor, concerned daughter in tears and sorrow. After the call, the girl continues to cry and sob uncontrollably. Seeing how desperate and helpless she looks, Yihuan decides to help her. He suggests that she tag along with him, and he will help her get home. Suddenly, their attention is caught by the commotion outside. It looks like more and more zombies have gathered inside the store. Seeing this, the girl starts to cower even more, realizing that they have no chance of escaping. Yihuan acknowledges that they won't be able to get out unless he takes care of the nuisance outside. He rummages through the store's supplies and creates a temporary weapon to defend an attack. Before leaving the storeroom, he sternly instructs her not to open the door under any circumstances and assures her he will be back soon. With that, he heads out, leaving the girl pleading with him not to go. But he shuts the door in her face and goes to confront the zombies outside. After taking down the menace, Yihuan returns and reassures her that everything is taken care of. Seeing him stand there confidently causes the girl's face to light up with immense astonishment. Just to be sure, she asks if he's okay. He affirms that he is. While he wasn't sure before, after fighting off those zombies, he's pretty damn confident that he's in good shape. Most importantly, he points out that the zombies don't seem to attack him to devour him. Later, Yihuan goes into a garment shop and picks out some clothes for himself. After changing into fresh clothes, he finally leaves the store. As if luck is on his side, he spots a heavy bike parked on the other side of the road. The beauty of the bike seems to be staring back at him, almost as if it's inviting Yihuan to ride. Later, when we return to the convenience store, we find the girl also changing into the clothes he brought her. Yihuan apologizes to her, saying that he didn't know much about women's clothing, so he picked out whatever he thought might work. Since there aren't many zombies around, he decides to gather some food supplies before they leave. As they move through the shelves, Yihuan finds a baseball bat and takes it for himself. The girl expresses her concern over how he's putting his life at risk just to keep her safe. They are literal strangers, and she doesn't understand why he's helping her. She also assumes that, being an ajushi, he must have a family he wants to protect. First of all, Yihuan can't help but make a creepy face when she calls him ajushi again. Second, he reassures her that she shouldn't feel guilty. It's natural for someone to be in desperate need of help, and he's sure that someday he might need help too. Above all, since the zombies don't bite him, there's no real threat to his life. The moon is shining brightly, casting a calm light over the zombies that roam carelessly beneath it. But their tranquility is soon disrupted by the loud vroom of a 700cc engine. The one behind the handlebars is, of course, Yihuan, riding the new beauty. Even though he's making quite a bit of noise, the zombies don't immediately react, likely because his presence is overshadowing the girl sitting behind him. Since there are no obstacles in their path, he hopes to reach Nuna as soon as possible and rescue her from this mess. We cut to a gas station, where inside a tuck shop, a man is hiding from the zombies. The bottle he's holding is his last source of water, and he knows that doom is soon to follow. He curses his rotten luck for getting stuck in this tuck shop, which has already been completely looted. Suddenly, the sound of a motorcycle catches his attention. This leads him to believe that there are survivors in the area. What's worse is that the sound is getting closer and closer. Eventually, the sound halts right outside the tuck shop at the gas station. Seeing how the rider of the bike casually stops in the middle of the monster-infested area, the man inside the tuck shop starts to lose his mind. It may not be a great idea, but he decides to take a life-risking chance and call out to them. But his worries are unfounded because Yihwan is already taking down the mindless zombies one by one. With just a single hit, each monster is down for the count. As Yihwan takes down the zombies, the man in the tuck shop can hardly believe his eyes. Suddenly, a zombie sneaks up behind Yihwan, so the tuck shop man shouts a warning to him. All Yihwan does is take 2 steps back, and the zombie zips past him, as if Yihwan isn't even there. The sight leaves the man in the tuck shop in utter disbelief. Meanwhile, as the zombie is about to reach the girl behind the bike, my guy swings his bat with such force that the zombie flies through the air like a trash bag. With the area cleared, Yihwan tells the girl to rest assured. As for the man stuck in the tuck shop, he still can't do anything but stare in complete astonishment at Yihwan. If his eyes aren't fooling him, what he saw clearly proves that zombies weren't even trying to bite Yihwan at all. Yihwan proceeds to walk toward the fuel dispenser to fill up the motorcycle since the road ahead will be long. But the duo is startled when the middle-aged man finally emerges from the tuck shop, excitement bubbling inside him. He's absolutely certain that the person in front of him is the exclusive scoop, a term that goes completely over Yihwan's head. Drinking water as if he's never had something better in his life, the man remarks that he's glad he was able to quench his thirst. Curious, Yihwan asks him how long he's been hiding for. Turns out it's only been 3 days. Though the guy wasn't expecting the convenience store to be completely run down and empty without having any resources. He's a little hopeful though, now that he's met his saviors in the apocalypse. In an effort to help better their relationship, he introduces himself as Kim Gi-do, a 32-year-old journalist who no longer cares about his job because their world has gone to shit. The girl is Park Gina, a 20-year-old freshman at her university. Finally, there's our boy Yihwan, who appears to be 28. He's rather reluctant in explaining that he's a mortician, or well used to be. Gi-do remarks that he doesn't look like one at all, while for some reason, Gina is staring at him, a detail he calls into question. It's actually because the chick is surprised this guy didn't turn out to be an old-ass boomer uncle. Gi-do learns how the two of them got together. Really, it was just a string of events that brought them together via the convenience store. Well, Yihwan admits that it's a little weird they never even exchanged names until this point. Anyway, Gi-do understands that both of them experienced some real horror being trapped here, which is something he's willing to expand on later. For now, he's actually pretty curious about something that's been bothering him. Gi-do straight up asks about Yihwan's strange ability, making him immune or invisible to zombies. Outside, the hordes of the undead are gargling and searching for fresh blood. Focusing back to their conversation, Yihwan tells his story of how he was knocked unconscious for 5 days inside the morgue, and only came to learn about the damning apocalypse after he got up. The most he recalls is getting sick before blacking out. The journalist is carefully penning down these details, confirming Yihwan's story that he made his escape from the hospital and found Gina shortly afterwards. Gi-do also confirms that Gina was looking for her family in the middle of these events. Now it seems like neither one of them actually knows about the events that took place, something Gi-do considers a blessing. Mortified, Gina asks why. He ends up explaining that the entirety of the planet was reduced to a zombie land within that timeline, so they can only imagine the worst. To expand on the details, the first 2 days were the definition of literal carnage. Normal people quickly turned into flesh-eating zombies, and most of them died without even getting the chance to know what was going on in the world. The really horrifying part is that they were hunted by their closest loved ones, not knowing what had gotten into their dear companions. With the way he's describing the details, Gina is out here weeping with her tear-filled eyes. The journalist apologizes for being too graphic in his details, and emphasizes that Gina's family must be okay because of the confirmation of the call. He assures her that they'll meet again, a fact that Gina confirms, though her words are filled with doubt. Deciding to interject in the discussion, Yihwan is curious about the journalist's story. Of course, even Gi-do shares that being a journalist means very little to him right now. He was actually working on a case to find the cause of this apocalypse, and taking that risk led him to being stranded as he ran out of gas and ended up stuck. Invested in knowing the truth about the zombie apocalypse, Yihwan inquires about his findings. The journalist argues that it's not that important, and his attention is thwarted to a more pertinent matter. The minute he turns to his left, he's terrified to see a group of zombies lashing out against the window. The scene terrifies the entire group, especially since they can't even exit the gas station before becoming a stake to this mad horde of zombies. Yihwan believes they should step up the gas pedal and really get the fuck out before finding out. Since they can't use the bike in this instance, he asks about the location of Gidu's car. It's parked on the roadside just a few minutes away. Of course, their only shot of getting to the car is if they get past these creepy fuckers into first place. Arming himself with a club, Yiwan decides to play the hero for them, declaring he'll clear a path while they'll block the door for him. It seems like a reckless idea to the journalist, especially since this guy is going to be risking his own life just to get out there. Yiwan promises that he'll be okay, especially since he's got no zombies to worry about biting him. Turning to face Gina with a reassuring, gentle smile, he promises to take her home just like he said so. Letting out a breath, our boy pulls up in a 1 versus 50 royale. Before he leaves, Gina musters up the confidence to tell him that he should just refer to her by her name since their age gap isn't too far. Hearing that, our boy smiles, uttering her name as he goes on to face the threat. The funniest part is Gidu out here acting like a third wheel in the midst of a troubled couple. Anyway, the creepy uglies outside weren't expecting it, but one human really did just make a superhero's entry to face them all. With a determined glare, Yiwan declares that he won't let a single one of them get inside. The horde of zombies scream as one human beats the crap out of them with his strength. He turns to one walking just past him, and I don't know if Yiwan had a personal grudge against this guy or something, but this dude really just slammed the shit out of him in the wall. He notes an interesting observation here. It's not just the fact that the zombies fail to attack him, but in fact, it's almost as if they don't recognize his presence at all. While he's figuring out the process of why this is the case, Yiwan does not care for now. All he cares about is standing firm on his objective to stop them from coming inside. Watching the scene from the window, Gidu finds himself on red alert. He can't believe his eyes. He makes the same observation as Yiwan. But then there's also his terrifying strength increase that he's acquired out of nowhere. The way he's just destroying zombies by slamming them around exhausts quite a bit of his stamina, causing him to become hungry. Even though he recently had a meal, the feeling is similar to not having eaten for days. It's just like last time, making his body weak and in need of resources. Bashing the zombies left and right, Yiwan concludes that he would probably feel a lot better after wiping the horde and consuming a meal. Meanwhile, the sight of Gina struck with incomprehensible terror causes Yiwan to drop to his knees. It confuses Gidu and worries Gina, because this guy is basically sitting breathless amongst the horde of the undead passing by. He doesn't know what happened just now, or why he could only think of Gina at that moment. Here's the jaw-dropping kicker. Yiwan is actually experiencing a severe temptation to eat a human. He's no different than the zombies in that regard, which actually kind of makes sense why they don't recognize his presence. Anyway, Gina is really worried and wants to help him, but Gidu sensibly tells her that it's reckless to do that. While they're arguing, Yiwan reclaims his stance and continues mowing down the horde of the undead, hitting as many of them as he possibly can. He finishes his outlash by crushing a zombie's face into the ground. Unfortunately, by the end of his fiery attacks, he's left with a panting and terrified state. This is bad, and he knows it. Even Gidu can sense it from afar. The puzzled, troubled, and conflicted protagonist tries to assure himself in his sea of doubts, believing that he's different from the zombies. He's a human, isn't he? Or that's what he wants to believe. His eyes beaming with a red spirit, Yiwan declares that he will never stoop so low as to become a monster like them. Well, it's a good thing that his temptations went away after consuming some water. Yiwan drank a ton of it, but it's only logical for how many zombies he took down on his own. Gina is worried that he might be hurt, but really, he didn't take any physical damage from the fight. Of course, the journalist believes that fighting so many of them and actually killing them isn't an easy thing. Still bothered by the extreme hunger he experienced, Yiwan's temptation is replaced by a gut-wrenching pain in his stomach. Deciding to focus on moving the needle forward, Yiwan recommends using Gidu's car as their safest escape route. Of course, they can easily find a gas can around here somewhere and refuel the vehicle properly. Yiwan suggests moving together because going alone is dangerous, bombarding them with a new level of panic. This one dude out of nowhere comes screaming for help. Luckily, he didn't get reduced to shreds from the zombie horde earlier. Yiwan notices that this guy seems legit, evident by his cry for help. The thing is, his friend is actually grievously injured and at the risk of death. But this situation is kind of tricky, as you wouldn't always just trust someone in the middle of an apocalypse. Yiwan calculates his options, while Gidu recommends they stay sharp on their toes because these guys could still be harmful. Gina argues against this idea, believing they should still help others in need. In any case, Yiwan agrees with her approach, no matter how naive. Gidu gives up and agrees to do it if they're okay with it. So Gina opens the lock and welcomes these punks inside, who are just so grateful they took a chance on them. But unbeknownst to them, these guys truly are a bunch of scumbags and they just got a free ticket inside. Gina hands them some water to revitalize themselves and asks about an update regarding their situation. Of course, Gidu is immediately skeptical and asks if their friend was bitten by a zombie. In response, the chubbier fellow panics and shows them there aren't any visible wounds. Another one of them believes that their friend should have turned into a zombie by now if that was the case. Anyway, the journalist is still doubtful and asks about their strategy to survive. Turns out these guys have nothing to go off of and were basically trying to find help for their friend. Gidu is standoffish in his stance, but his attitude causes Gina to snap. She thinks he should focus on helping these guys while they're in danger, especially since it's only thanks to Yihuan's consideration that they're alive. The guy who is sweating like bullets thanks them for their generosity. Gidu admits that perhaps he was too harsh in his approach, while Yihuan turns to him and asks if the car is an SUV. This means that all 5 of them can travel without any trouble. But of course, Yihuan has different plans because he wants to look for a motorcycle on his own. This is because he wants to lead the group by scouting for safer locations ahead of time. It's a wise strategy since they can't stay in one place forever. The journalist agrees with the idea, and they decide to get the car as soon as possible. Gina promises to handle the injured fellow while they're busy retrieving the car. Gidu tells her that they'll be back soon, so she's got nothing to worry about. Of course, that's how they both leave. But unbeknownst to them, these bastards were plotting a scheme all along. The scene cuts to Yihuan and Gidu arriving at the location of the car. They refuel the vehicle, but he's curious why the journalist is extremely opposed when it comes to the 3 new guys. Well, he explains that his gut is telling them not to trust these strangers, and it's only because of the sheer horror he experienced in the past few days that has made him cautious of others. Since he has such a cynical view of people, Yihuan is intrigued and asks why the journalist trusted them right off the bat. Well, it's because he was already going insane from the dehydration and had to find a way to survive. Yihuan is also curious why he referred to him as a scoop when they met each other, which basically means the journalist got lucky in finding a dude who is literally immune to the zombie apocalypse. In response, our boy's stomach cracks open the skies with a loud grumble. This man is probably going to eat like Goku after this shit ends. He gets flustered, but it's only logical for him to get so exhausted after battling against zombies. Gidu believes they should aim for finding food after the car. But something happens. A strange feeling creeps up on our protagonist, as he merely turns around, frozen in place. He has heard something, and it's not zombies this time. Yihuan is confident that he could hear Gina's voice. And now let's go back to the gas station, where a girl is screaming to be let go of. Gina has been seized by these bastards, who blackmail her by saying that she'll only attract the zombies with her whining. This causes her to freeze, even more when the barrel of a gun is placed against her head. The scumbag who was pretending to be sick reveals his true nature, overjoyed to have them right where he wanted. They fell for his shitty little gimmick, and he doesn't want to keep up with any disguises anymore. He and his group are planning to shoot down Yihuan and Gidu the moment they return. As for her, she will serve as their perfect hostage for the situation. Gina gets annoyed and bites his damn finger, making the clown squeal like a little bitch. He smacks her face and continues to mercilessly beat her down with his gun. Though she's knocked unconscious, he's still seething from the stinging pain. Even his friend thinks it's funny that this dude ended up getting bitten by a human instead of a zombie. Anyway, he's done playing around and wants the chubbier friend to stay and guard outside. This perverted freak just wants to have his way with her while she's vulnerable to them. He plans on taking her with them after killing both her friends. This disgusting prick is unbuttoning her pants when Yihuan comes around, enraged as he bashes this dude's head and knocks him flying. Like a ghost, he appeared out of nowhere, and seeing Gina's pitiful condition, rage is the only thing he can think about. Gidu also arrives, worried sick for her condition, and tries to help her out. He was right not to trust these freaks from the beginning. Yihuan requests the journalist to take her into the car. Meanwhile, this man is in the mood to leave a bunch of bodies behind, so he's going to be staying here for a bit. The journalist brings her to the car, glad that he wasn't attacked by zombies in the process. He turns to her. Gina clearly looks hurt. It was no different from what he suspected the first time he saw those guys. Gidu thinks it's a good way to teach a lesson to both Gina and Yihuan, warning them not to trust anyone right off the bat. But now she's safe, because even Gidu knows that they've got one hell of a protector. Speaking of our boy, let's zone in on the fight. This guy is passing these clowns a mean-ass glare. They just hurt his girl. No way he's gonna let this slide. In response, both dudes come out with weapons of their own. One holding a baton and the other a crowbar, talking shit to our boy for overestimating his capabilities. Yihuan doesn't say a word, and shockingly drops his metal bat, perplexing both of them. At first they think he chickened out from the fight, but the chubby fellow has caught on, and tells Gihun not to get ahead of himself because clearly something is wrong with this guy. Nerves pop out on his face, his expression of anger turning to sinister craziness. His thoughts are muddled, but the worst part? He's hungry. He's hungry to devour real human flesh, and his sanity as the cusp of destruction. Well, real shit goes down when he starts coming down on Gihun's corpse after killing him, enjoying every bite as he munches on his flesh. Then he turns to the rest, walking right up to the bastard who hurt Gina and took advantage of their trust. The guy is out here terrified to see Yihuan the way he's acting right now. We get a seriously frightening shot of our boy just staring him down like he's about to have some KFC out here. The dude flails his little gun in response, but in the end, Yehuan destroys him and consumes his flesh. After that, he quickly wiped off the blood. Gidu heard the gunshot sound and jumped out of the car in fear. But to his astonishment, only one man came out of the gas station alive, and it was Yehuan. Worried, he asks if our boy is doing okay, but in response, he asks about Gina's condition, who seems to be doing fairly well asleep. It's reassuring for him to hear that, but Gidu is wondering why he changed his clothes. Yehuan hands him the gun he retrieved from the clowns. It's a great thing to have in this damn apocalypse, so the journalist is happy. Also, he's more than willing to trust Gidu's intuition from now on, showing that he's adapting to his mistakes, unlike a fudge ton of protagonists and their naive optimism. Worried, the journalist asks if he's really okay or if something happened. Pretending to be normal, Yehuan shoots him a smile, masking his feelings and pain as he checks on the bike. It's finally time for them to get the hell out of here after all. Gidu doesn't know what the hell happened inside, but he chooses not to think too hard. It's time for the group to leave, so they head off. During their ride, Gina reawakens only to find herself surprised that she's in a car with the journalist. She doesn't know what happened, but Gidu promises that they dealt with the manipulative assholes who tried to take advantage of them. Also, Yehuan is determined not to leave her side and plans to be extra protective of her. Hearing that, Gina cries, holding her face in tears. It causes Gidu to worry that she might have gotten hurt somewhere. She ponders why those people, the same people they tried to help, took advantage of them. They had noble intentions, and yet, instead of looking to survive together, those guys instilled a permanent despairing feeling in her heart, causing her trust issues with anyone she is now going to meet. It's not a good feeling, and Gidu understands, but he gives her the words she needs to hear. On the bright side, he wants her to fully trust Yehuan, even if she doesn't trust anyone else, as he's more than willing to protect her, no matter what happens. Let me pause for a moment and break down the significance of the scene where Yehuan gave the journalist the gun. It's actually because he doesn't trust himself and wants Gidu to handle him in case he spirals out of control. Okay, going back into the story, Yehuan and his group clear the area inside a building. With every last one downed, our boy wants to take his friends to the room he saw, but his eyes darted to a picture frame of a loving family. He almost forgot these zombies were once real people, and apologizes for having killed the father. Anyway, he secured 2 rooms for his group. There's not much for them to worry about anymore, but he's confused why the journalist wanted them to stay the night, especially since they've got a travel vehicle now and all. It's because Gidu wanted them to rest from all the exhaustion, as traveling in the daytime would be safer. To top it off, it's imperative for Gina to get all the rest she needs. Worried, Yehuan asks if she'll be alright. It's not looking bright because she's endured a severe mental scar from this experience, halting her ability to trust anyone anymore. It's a hopeless feeling, and it's really sad how some traumatic experiences can corrupt a person's view of the world for the rest of their lives. But the journalist argues that it's necessary for Yehuan to play his role well here. Since she doesn't trust anyone anymore, she will only rely on someone like Yehuan, the man who saved her and protected her time and time again. Yehuan doesn't really want to step into those shoes and expresses that it's literally their first day together. But the journalist argues that they've been through a lot of shit for one day, which is also true. Anyway, the second reason he wanted to locate a place to rest is because of Yehuan himself. As he's a reporter, he's been meaning to ask him a bunch of things. The first question is why the zombies don't see his presence. Of course, our boy doesn't know the answer to that question, but he strongly believes that they don't recognize him at all. The journalist enters a contemplative state, wondering what kind of explanation could help describe the cause. Since it's their first day together, they don't know much, but Gidu wants him to keep him updated in case Yehuan discovers something new about his condition. The next question is whether or not our boy has dabbled in sports or martial arts before. The question comes across strange to Yehuan, who denies any such thing, because that's the one thing that really surprised the journalist. His monstrous strength, as he was casually picking up zombies and slamming them into walls and pavements like they were nothing. The journalist declares that it's almost as if he isn't even human, a phrase that makes Yehuan coil into fear. Gidu understands that even Yehuan is clueless about his condition. To disengage from the serious topic, the journalist apologizes for asking so much out of the guy right after he saved their lives. Also, Yehuan's quest to find his sister is still up in the air. He wants to check their home to see how she's doing, since his sister is located in Yangyang, and that place is pretty far away from here. There's no telling if they'll be able to make the transport. Still, despite the odds and the difficulties presented in front of him, Yehuan wants to do everything in his power to help save his sister. The journalist strongly opposes the idea because the place is far away, and there's no need for him to be so reckless. Yehuan doesn't understand why either, though he senses that it's just the right thing to do, no matter how hard. Hearing those words, Gina appears to be awake, her eyes filled with tears. moved by Yihwan's honesty. Gidu thinks the guy is a bit too nice, and it only makes sense why Gina trusts him unconditionally. Journaling his thoughts on paper, Gidu wants to conclude the conversation with one question. He wants to know if Yihwan has sensed any specific patterns about the zombies, just about any kind of information that could help them in the long run. Scratching his head in confusion, Yihwan replies that he doesn't know anything meaningful. He believes their senses are still intact, but that theory is also inconsistent, because it doesn't add up why zombies can tell the difference between humans and one of their own. Surprising them with her sudden entry, Gina drops a bombshell. The zombies are actually attracted to exposed skin, as per the words of her manager, who hid in the storage room before being attacked. Gidu is worried that she's up early, but Gina sits down after failing to fall asleep for a while. Also, she apologizes to our boy for making him needlessly worried, reassuring him that she's better now. Anyway, Gidu is curious by her words and asks for more. Gina explains that the zombies are drawn to exposed skin, which is also why she asked for longer pants back at the store. The troubled reporter is even more confused than before, realizing that they've got much to work with here. In any case, it's best for them to look for gloves to cover more of their skin. Gina actually ends up finding a functioning radio nearby. The transmission from radio mentions the 6th day of the virus outbreak, remarking how life continues to be threatened by the apocalypse. Gina can't believe that the radio is actually functioning at this time. The broadcast is live, reporting the 5 days of the apocalypse. Yihwan and Gidu are shocked to find the channel still functioning, which means the station must be safe. But Yihwan believes that they might be trapped inside the station. Instead, this may seem more like a distress signal instead of an actual broadcast. Well, Gina knows the station is nearby, so Gidu recommends they leave it in the hands of Yihwan, who should make the ultimate call. After all, he's the only one among them capable of navigating inside the station. Still, Yihwan strongly believes that finding Gina's parents is more of a priority, and he's fine with reconsidering their options after that. Seeing him stand up for her so many times, Gina feels relieved. The journalist is okay with that thought and suggests they all take some rest. In the next scene, we get a dream sequence where our boy is bolting away from the zombies in fear. They're slowly getting to him, and in the end, all he can do is brace himself for the pain to come. Yihwan snaps out of it and sees Jinmin's body appear before his eyes. It's clearly shocking because he's not supposed to be alive. It makes him wonder if the whole zombie apocalypse thing was a dream to begin with. But then, Bro's life turns to shit as a horde of zombies savor on a human's flesh, giving him more nightmares to think about. Jinmin invites his buddy to go along and eat with them, as he's supposed to like human flesh. And his face looks like something out of a horror movie. Imagine your best buddy covered in blood like that and inviting you to eat human flesh. Scary, right? Yihwan finally awakens, his breath panting and his eyes full of horror. Daylight hits the edge of his bed, and peace eventually sets in. His hands still tremble from the experience as he collects his thoughts, reinforcing himself once more that he'll never turn out to be like the zombies. The scene cuts to a different location where a couple is resting on their bed, having freshly run out of food to eat. Instead of worrying about their own health, they're even more worried about their daughter Gina. They're hoping she was rescued by a reliable person. The poor mother just wants to see her daughter a second time, and they embrace their demise as there's nothing they can do. Suddenly, Gina's father is drawn to a sound that wakes him up. He heard a motorcycle hinting at a survivor. To his surprise, the bike stopped. Around, the zombies are mangling about. So this decision seems reckless to Gina's parents, because they don't know about Yihwan's special powers. He's safely come to the exact location Gina described, but there's no signs of human life so far. He entertains the idea of neutralizing the horde before expanding their search. So our boy uses his trusty metal bat to knock the ever-living crap out of one of them. The scene leaves Gina's parents at a loss for words. They are seeing one dude just destroy zombies without any trouble. It makes them wonder what kind of person he is. With the path cleared, Yihwan looks around and realizes why Gidu's car can't make it this deep into the city without clearance. So now he wants to scout his surroundings to investigate more. Yihwan ends up walking in the direction of their house, hopping over the wall. They're afraid of going out and trusting a complete stranger until suddenly, Yihwan addresses them and asks for confirmation of Gina's parents. Both of them come rushing to welcome him after hearing their daughter's name. They're so caught up that it startles even Yihwan for a second. Fast forwarding to Gina finally getting a chance to embrace her parents, the family goes for a happy reunion. Seeing them get back together, Yihwan's face lights up, relieved that he was able to fulfill his promise. Unfortunately, Gidu has to remind them to do this inside as it's still unsafe out here. Gina's father grabs his hand, thanking them dearly for taking care of their daughter. Of course, the journalist doesn't want to take any credit and tells them it was all Yihwan's doing. They head inside, at last, Gina's parents explaining how they were lucky and how they managed to create multiple blockades against the zombies to ensure their survival. Unfortunately, Being trapped inside expired their resources, and they did everything to search for their daughter. Luckily, they have her back now, so they're extremely grateful to the two men that helped her. But Gidu explains that it's all thanks to Yuan, who has been taking care of things for them. Yuan learns that they didn't step foot outside for 6 days. The power went out, but thankfully water was working fine, and that's how they survived. Well, there wasn't any food left to eat, so they were practically starving to death at this rate. Yuan realizes he has to do something about their situation and remembers riding past a supermarket down the road. The shutters were down, which means the supermarket probably has a boatload of resources inside, making it a good way for them to stack up on resources. He has to ensure their survival, so he's going to go outside. But Gina's father is against the idea, as he would be risking his life for them. Even then, Yuan believes they can't survive without the basic human resource. Plus, they haven't eaten anything for 2 days, and he can't just glance over them. Agreeing with the idea, Gidu pitches in, stating that they should prioritize survival, as anything could happen with the way things are going. Gina's father musters up the resolve to help our boy. But of course, Yuan wouldn't want to risk something like that, so he turns him down and tells him to focus on Gina's condition first. Hearing that, Gina's father is reduced to a mess. There's nothing more endearing like a man worried for his family. Well, Yuan takes off. Gidu intends to come along with him to manage the food. Following Gina's theory, he's got himself covered completely and wants to help Yuan by being useful instead of acting as a burden. That's a good thing for the protagonist who's got a dependable ally to work with. They say their goodbyes to the family and ride away. Of course, Gina's family is worried, but she's hella confident in our boy's survivability and believes Yuan will always return. At the supermarket, the two of them crack open the locks and lift the shutter, exposing an untouched stash of valuables for them to steal. It's a miracle to find a supermarket like this in such an apocalypse. With so much to use, Yuan and Gidu are confident the family can easily survive for a few years with this much stuff. They get busy collecting what they need, and the scene transitions to the MBS headquarters. Here, a worried man talks to someone on the phone. Unfortunately, he's stuck handling the daily broadcast and has to follow strict instructions. Suddenly, he hears a sudden message from the other side, telling him about important information. When the call ends, the guy is left questioning the purpose behind the messages being broadcasted. Among his jotted thoughts, he has recently come to know of a bike rider whose identity is unknown to him. Yuan and Gidu acquired what they needed the most. Also, they use this chance as an opportunity to grab a bunch of medicines from the pharmacy as well. All of a sudden, the journalist is feeling the crushing weight of stealing from stores. Still, it's too late for them to be worrying about meaningless things like that when the world is destroyed. Since looting the store is going to take a bit, Yuan is on guard duty, especially since medicines need to be carefully checked before being taken. The MBS headquarters is just up ahead, and Yuan is busy staring at it. He recalls the broadcast was from the same radio, which means Gina was correct about it being close by. Gidu thinks it would be unwise to worry about the broadcast at this time, especially since they have to take care of Gina's family first and focus on finding his sister. Gidu tells him to just give it up for now and focus on more pertinent matters. Though reluctant, Yuan understands that he has to find his sister as soon as possible, especially since she's stopped responding to his messages. Fast-forwarding back to Gina's family, they share an excellent meal, revitalizing themselves after being completely drained for 2 days. The family is so grateful that he's done so much for them. All of this should last the four of them a minimum of 6 months. Unfortunately, he won't be staying since he has to go find his sister. Gina's family is worried, and her mother asks about his sister's location. Whoa, did I just drop a Five Nights at Freddy's reference? Anyway, bro's sister lives really far away, so it's not going to be easy. Yuan understands that, but he has to save his one and only family he has left. Hearing that, Gina sits in silence, understanding his pain. Though he has one more request. After saving his sister, our boy wants to bring her back to Gina's family, which makes her feel flustered. Yuan strongly believes that this is the safest place among all, and it's not like his sister has important connections of her own to worry about in these times. Since the zombies can't bite him, he'll be of great use to them anyway. He just wants to make sure Gina is safe, and he's willing to do anything for that. That's why he promises to return with his sister and help them out even more. Of course, Gina's family can't even decline a request like this, but they do have one strong objection. Gina's father is out here having a temper tantrum because bro thinks our boy wants to steal his daughter. Even the mom catches on, but she's more supportive than anything. Can't believe they're thinking about grandkids when they're in the middle of a damn apocalypse. At night, they have to manage their way with candles. There's no power after all. Yuan learns that Gina's parents are fast asleep. They continue on their nightly talks, Gidu calculating his thoughts. He wonders how much food they'll have to take to get to Yangyang for 2 people. Hearing that, Yuan remarks in confusion, especially when the journalist admits that he's coming along to help our boy. It seems like a ridiculous idea to abandon a safe location like this, But Gidu understands the risks. It's just that he's always been part of a risky job. He's just dying to know more about Yihuan, and that's why he's sticking to him like a persistent bug. Bro's gonna use him to make a name for himself, but it really makes me laugh because it's not like anyone's gonna be caring about fame in a zombie apocalypse, right? Gidu reminds him of Yihuan's own words, who boldly said that he'd trust the journalist's words from now on. Promising not to be a burden, the journalist assures him that they'll be fine. Also, since he's traveled a lot as a journalist, he knows all the ways to handle safe navigation. Yihuan is okay with that, so Gina gives them one last thing to go along their journey. It's actually the radio that she picked up from the building. It's going to be useful in learning about new information around the area, even though Gidu is a bit skeptical on that front. Yihuan is startled when the radio suddenly pops open a new transmission. The transmission talks about the confirmed reports of multiple witnesses from around the area. The center of attention is a man who is immune to the undead, someone famously dubbed as the Motorcycle Man. As the broadcast sinks in, Gidu quickly catches on that the radio is probably talking about our boy. The reporter further continues about this mysterious motorcycle man, who was first sighted in Incheon. Then, Buchan, Gangseo, and Hwagok all say this guy is heading straight for the heart of Seoul. That's the man who doesn't get hit by the infected. Maybe he is the solution to all their problems. Clinging to hope in the middle of all this mayhem, he initiates the MBS midday radio. Meanwhile, Yihuan, sitting next to Blondie on the couch, looks shaken like he wasn't expecting to hear that. RJ continues, saying that a man who gets no darn effect on him if attacked by the infected. That news isn't something he bought at first, and who would broadcast this bullcrap? He says he has gotten some complaints, telling him not to give people false hope. But even though he is stuck in this broadcast studio, he keeps it going just to send even the tiniest spark of hope to the survivors listening. The lot stuck in the endless rut of despair and loneliness. He wants to let them know that giving up isn't an option. He has faith that hope will never die, and that salvation will come to pass. That's MBS Radio's produce, coming live, Sun Jinchul. The trio listening to Jinchul looks straight up stunned by all this. Meanwhile, Jinchul throws on a track to lighten the mood. A soothing song for troubled hearts, worn out from all the despair. With that, RJ hits play, letting the song flow to countless souls stuck in the depths of despair. Leaning back like a dead weight, RJ looks completely drained. Even after preaching hope on the radio, he doesn't seem to believe in it himself. With a worrisome fact, he has no clue how much longer he can keep up this life. Back at the house, the trio just sits there, totally speechless. No one has even said a word in minutes. Then, Gidu breaks the silence, confirming if the RJ called himself Sun Jinchul, the PD from MBS. Yihuan tends to ask if Gidu knows the guy. Reaching for his pocket, Gidu mumbles under his breath upon having Jinchul's number somewhere. He finally finds it. So, he definitely met the guy at the radio current affairs department. What's wild, though, is that he is starting to think Jinchul might be running the whole station solo. Aside from that, Yuan checks with Gidu to see if the radio place is still taking reports for the broadcast. Gidu is sure they are still doing it, no doubt. After taking it all in, Yuan finally speaks up, ready to claim that he is the motorcycle guy. This big confession drop of this guy blows their minds. No doubt he straight up admits that the truth is, zombies don't bite him. But he still has no clue why. Despite everything, Yuan, having a long face, didn't want to give people false hope. He feels like he doesn't deserve to pull this stunt. However, Gidu tries to understand his side of the view, but he suggests the guy try taking caution at something that could endanger his life, especially when he is living in a world where trusting anyone is the act of a fool. In Gidu's view, if this guy exposed his identity, he is definitely screwed. But Yihuan feels like stuff like that doesn't really matter now. Flashing a grin, he straight up says that exposing his identity isn't a big deal, especially in a world like this. Still, he tells them to take a chill pill, swearing that he will be as careful as possible so there won't be anything to worry about. Sighing aloud, Gidu gives away the green flag finally, letting Yuan do his thing. Afterwards, Gidu decides to hook Yuan up with that broadcast guy. After all, he is somewhat tight with the PD personally. Moreover, he is sure that the PF will only buy his story if he vouches for him. For that, Yuan is really grateful to Gidu for his non-stop support till now. Ringing the call to the MBS Sun Jinchul, Gidu claims to be Kim Gidu, asking if he is in the middle of the broadcast. Jinchul can't believe his ears upon hearing the voice of journalist Kim Gidu. Feeling relieved, he goes ahead and asks if Gidu is in a safe spot right now. Gidu admits to being in a safe situation. Brushing it off, he gets to the real thing. That's when he confesses to keeping intel that needs reporting. Without wasting time, Gidu drops a big hint, saying the motorcycle guy from the broadcast might just be his colleague. Spilling that out, Gidu and Yihuan look at each other for a moment, but Jinchul practically jumps out of his seat. The dude can't handle this bombshell, asking if he's really speaking the truth. Right then he flinches as this grave news breaks out. He trembles like a shaky leaf, struggling to make sense of it all. Snapping out of it, Jincheon hurries over to the radio system. He apologizes to the audience, claiming to have gotten a major tip-off urgently, so he decides to cut the transmission with this last song. Back to the call, Jincheon can only hope Gidu's words of wisdom hold true. With reports about the motorcycle guy coming in now and then, there's a lot of uncertainty, some true, some just rumors. When asked, Gidu didn't even hesitate. He was ready to stake his name on it, just like any true journalist would. That takes Jincheon by surprise, whose eyes pop out of his socket in shock. Taking a look back, Gidu, fighting through the crowd, calls back to the Humpty Dumpty-looking chairman. At the part of his unfair appointment, Gidu demands an explanation from the chairman. In his journaling days, Gidu, shivering in the cold, awaited the explanation. But he never got the chance. Now Jincheon is ready to buy Gidu's truth, confirming if his colleague is still with him. That said, Gidu signals Yihwan, and he then joins the call, claiming to be the motorcycle guy. This mere voice stuns Jincheon for a moment. Keeping it cool, he has got his list of questions ready, ones he needs answers to. Meanwhile, the lot from every corner of the world hears RJ Jincheon, stating that the motorcycle guy actually holds great importance. For his listeners, he knows that everyone has fallen into the pit of despair. And for them, just knowing someone out there can't be bitten by the infected, that alone is their last shred of hope. Without further ado, Sun Jincheon asks Yihwan if it's all true, and that's when he verbally confesses to being immune to the infected. However, the reason is still unknown. Furthermore, he goes on to say that the infected don't seem to notice him at all. They don't get aggressive and barely react to his voice like he is not even here. Jincheon notes it all down. After a sudden pause, Yihwan says he still isn't the kind of hope Jincheon is looking for. Yeah, he's helped some people with this ability, but he's got his own limits too. That's that. Jincheon decides to pass only the verifying intel, even if Gidu has vouched for him. Moreover, he demands to see any evidence proving his immunity to the infected. Yihwan asks Jincheon if the area around MBS is swarming with the infected. That sends chills down Jincheon's spine. Yihwan confirms that he's coming there himself. The same night, Jincheon is having a hard time buying Yihwan gutsy claims. Jincheon demands to know if he will be daring to come solo for real. With eyes filled with determination, he declares that that's the only condition for making Jincheon believe his story. Then, he is down to taking the risk for it. That's enough to freak Jincheon out. But his RJ protocol wouldn't let him bend the rules of passing the intel without verification. Thus, he is expecting Yihwan to come by MBS, as it wouldn't trouble him if the infected doesn't give a damn about him. Then, he drops his current whereabouts, residing inside MBS, broadcasting station on the 8th floor, second studio from the end of the right hallway. Jincheon warns this hi-fi immunity claimer that his station is practically overrun by the infected mafia. However, Yihwan, unfazed, still sets their meeting time for tomorrow, as this guy doesn't care whatsoever. After this, Jincheon redirects to journalist Gidu, saying that he never imagined hearing his voice in times like these. Thus, he wishes that Gidu take good care of himself. To ease the PD's troubled mind, Gidu assured him that they would find him soon. And just like that, the call ends. The infected's radar doesn't sense Yihwan at all. Not to mention, he is completely immune to their mess, and they won't bite him no matter what. All this information is seemingly hard to process for this guy, but Jincheon's mind wanders, questioning what if it's all true. Letting it all sink in, Jincheon realizes Yihwan isn't just hope, but he might be salvation itself. The next day, Yihwan's prep is all set, telling Gidu that outside is wide open, clear as day, and not a single zombie near his car. Gearing up, Gidu is pretty much ready for this heist. Right then, Ajina's mother comes down to hand over Yihwan some homemade rice balls. She believes that it's going to be a rough and tough ride, so it's good to have something. The dude practically jumps in excitement to notice a pile of rice balls packed in the box for him. After thanking her a big time, he promises to eat it all. Just like that, this woman warns Yihwan to be extra careful and bring back his sister in one piece, because they will definitely be waiting for them. Just as Yihwan steps out, Gina rushes out to get his attention. At a loss for words, she couldn't meet his eyes. He assures Blondie that there's nothing to worry about as zombies wouldn't dare mess with him. However, her emotions go wild, and before she knows it, she is wrapping Yihwan in a tight hug. That catches him off guard. But this cutie couldn't help but thank Yihwan for everything. But she wants this guy to return at all costs. Turning as red as a tomato, Yihwan tells her not to worry, as he fully intends to return safely. Out of nowhere, Gidu feels the ick, dismissing this union. The dude rants that dating is all fine, but marriage can't be far too rushed. Feeling utterly disgusted at this old fool, they make horrible faces at him, showing their annoyance. Afterward, Yihwan heads out, while the people behind hope for their safe return. Hours later, Yihwan and Gidu get to the crazy zone infested with zombies. With Gidu packed and secure in the car, the immunized Yihwan, bat in hand, scored good hits at those brainless dum-dums. One savage hit catches the attention of other zombies, who couldn't help turning to look. Having a close inspection, Yuan speculates that if they don't take down this swarm, this whole area will be a pain in the head. Not only that, he believes it will become much more dangerous to find shelter in this chaos. Gidu understands where he is coming from and tends to let Yuan handle this one. Although Yuan, taking a sigh, knows that it ain't an easy task, but he doesn't have any choice left. Gripping his bat, this big shot warns the brainless army that he gotta pass through by all means. Inside, Son Jinchul is close to passing out due to extreme weakness. Dumped in the corner, Jinchul feels like his body is giving out. Whatever strength is left of him, he thinks to have reached his limit. Any more of this, and he is done with this life. Nothing to drink or to eat. His supplies have run out long ago, so he resorts to waiting for his death. By the looks of his health, today's broadcast doesn't seem like a possibility now. Still, he feels even worse for not leaving a farewell message in yesterday's broadcast, if only he knew things would sink this low. Even more so, Jinchul anticipated this much to happen like this. But he would have one lasting regret. He still desires to confirm the truth behind the motorcycle man. Feeling dizzy, like he's one step from the stairway to heaven, Jinchul thinks it's a damn shame to go out without satisfying his curiosity. All of a sudden, Jinchul's phone flashes a ring that catches his attention. As it turns out, that's his fellow journalist, Kim Gidu. Without missing a beat, he grabs his phone to answer quickly. Thus, the speaker blows a concerned voice, and Gidu demands to know if Jinchul is still doing okay. And just like that, Gidu finally gets an answer, as Jinchul confirms to be doing fine for now. Sighing in relief, Gidu lets him know to hang in there, as they are surely not so late. This hint spikes his curiosity, and also passes a chill down his spine. Seeding bullets like crazy, he straight up questions Gidu, asking his current whereabouts. Without further ado, Gidu calmly lets him know that they successfully arrived at the MBS building. Suddenly, Jinchul's soul probably jumps out of his skin, having a hard time buying this all. He can't believe those fools actually made it to the MBS building. Even then, he warns the idiots that the entrance is infested with zombies, making it impossible to let anyone pass through. To ease his mind, Gidu initiates a video call routine with Jinchul. Just as Gidu gets him on FaceTime, Jinchul's mind gets blown away to witness the atrocious acts of motorcycle guy yanking the zombies away. He takes notice of the infected getting slammed away, crushed by a bat, only to carve a path straight to the entrance. That man alone is being a total menace to wipe them out. Gidu explains that if he stepped outside, he would be 1 second from death. But in the case of Yuan, the guy is built differently. Son Jinchul bears witness to seeing Motorcycle Man true to his words. He sees the first guy who isn't a zombie's preferred menu. No bite from the brainless rot makes him the face of hope. After wiping them out, Yuan's head zones out, with endless thoughts. This all occupies his head, haunted by the trauma of butchering countless people. After a momentary pause, he gives away the green flag for Gidu, saying that it's safe to step out now. And then Gidu comes out believing that it's all for real. So he stands by his wise words to set the record straight. He states that the broadcasting station would remain a hellhole if someone like Yuan didn't take a step to disinfect it. Only he got the chance to enter the MBS building. Just then, Yuan spots a police shield lying around useless. Time to grab something useful. He hands the police shield over to Gidu, saying it will definitely come in handy. No doubt Gidu feels the same way. Moving ahead, Yuan is sure of butting into many more brainless duds inside. Thus, he gives a piece of advice Gidu's way that his best chance of surviving this is by sticking closer to him. With that, he wouldn't have a problem living another day. Gidu remembers the inside of the MS building is nothing short of a labyrinth for the newbies. But thanks to Gidu's familiarity with this place, he gets to be the guide who knows the radio station's layout. Thus he wishes to be their navigator in this assignment. And just like that, these two brave fools make their way inside. Walking inside, mostly it's all vacant, luckily, wherever these two patrol. Yuan, with the baseball bat as his weapon of choice, checks out another room, but it's steered clear of any survivors or zombies. That surprises Gidu, but he feels something's off. Climbing up, Gidu has this unsettling feeling bubbling in his chest, which is forcing him to keep a lookout. Head turn every other second. The dude mutters that this kind of silence just doesn't feel right. Then, he tends to ask Yuan if everyone just bolted when the incident went down. At first, Yuan's mind races countless thoughts to cook a reason for it. However, he ends up coming up with a question instead. Without wasting time, he asks Gidu why Jinchul is so determined to keep the broadcast going. Although he gets the idea that regardless of his situation, that all must be really tough for him. But even then, why must he keep the broadcast going? Giving it a thought, Gidu probably thinks it's his sense of responsibility as an informant. After all his years of working at broadcasting station, he kept providing all kinds of info. Even at these dire times, Gidu believes that Jinchul wishes to keep doing what's in his power, like a sense of duty to mankind. Yuan thinks the work Gidu and Jincheol do as journalists are seriously impressive, which catches Gidu off guard. As a couple of journalists, they didn't seem to lose their sense of duty and kept collecting intel to make sense of this situation, and in many ways, probably trying to resolve this situation. Besides that, Yuan feels like there's nothing he can really do as a mortician, which makes him feel kind of pathetic. Just then Gidu hits him with the shield, which almost pops his eyeballs out. He asks Gidu what's the fuss, but Gidu claims this hit on Gina's name. He believes that Gina would have done the same thing if he saw Yuan's loser self resurfacing. Without a doubt, Gidu comes up with a question, asking Yuan who is the person that can comfortably exist without so much care in this world. Cutting to the chase, Gidu spits out fairly that Yuan has a million chances to look for his way out, and he can set his mind to do anything. Even then, he bluntly chose to rescue Gina, himself, and their family. Now Gidu flashes his point that Yuan is going out of his way to save PD Jincheol too. That's something only Yuan has the power to do, but the real reason behind it is something entirely else. That said, Gidu insists it's a choice he made because it's the right thing to do. Furthermore, this world reeks of people with malice, not just survival. And the guys who messed with Gina at the gas station quite make an example. But even in this messed up world, Yuan steps in to help purely out of pure goodwill. What's so pathetic about that? And Gidu guarantees that no one else in the world has stepped up to do what Yuan has done so far. That does the trick, and Yuan thanks Gidu for this thumbs up. Reaching the 8th floor, these two goofballs are ready for the showdown. Carefully sneaking in, they enter the silenced corridor that luckily runs vacant too. At the left end of the hallway, the second door, they finally reach the entrance of Studio 6. Gidu plans to call Jincheol, oblivious to what's about to hit them. In mere seconds, a hungry freak infected leaps into action to get a good bite of Gidu. Turning his head, Gidu freaks out, as his soul jumps out of his skin in pure terror. Just in time, Yuan yanks Gidu out of the way, and the lad gets sent flying like a missile. But to their darn luck, that zombie bites the wrong guy. Panic sets in, Gidu screams, worried sick for Yuan who has fallen for the zombie's bite. Right then, he lands a savage blow to knock the zombie out of the way. At his wit's end, the lad can't believe he got bitten by the infected. Gidu is practically losing his mind. At this moment, Yuan has no clue what's about to happen next, wondering if he is about to change as well. He tends to ask Gidu if he is still keeping that gun with him. Gidu's chill levels plummeted faster, and he was drenched in sweat, unable to make sense of these dire circumstances. Yuan hopes that he is still carrying one. Gidu went from 0 to existential dread pretty fast. The dude took business days to process what Yuan was implying. Sweating bullets, he demands to know what Yuan has in mind. However, Yuan is in a rush to get this over with, bursting into Studio 6. Inside, he found the same zombie he knocked down moments before trembling. Seeing this horrific sight, he refuses to fall to this degree and be like them. Thus, he decided to do his best until he lost his mind. Meanwhile, the woman, practically shivering like a shaky leaf, snaps out of the zombie fever, begging Yuan to stop. Now that wasn't in the cards. Yuan's eyes widened in shock to see a zombie shifting back to his human mode. Yuan stands face to face with this anomaly, while Gidu watches it all go down from outside the room. Bawling her eyes out, she begs Yuan to save her. She pleads for a chance to prove her innocence, insisting she hasn't done anything. Totally thrown off, Gidu wonders if she is actually infected or not. However, Yuan can't ignore the truth that she jumped at him to attack and bite him. If she isn't infected, then why did she bite his hand? Along with momentary silence, the room fills with the woman's sobs. That's when Yuan decides to get her out of this risky place and take her to the studio first. The sight sent a jolt of terror through Gidu's mind, practically paralyzing this dude out of fear as Yuan decided to take the biter with them. He reasons with Scaredy Cat that she isn't infected, so they can't let her rot here. He makes up his mind to think it over after reaching a much safer place. In the middle of processing this foolish idea, Gidu notices Yuan's bitten hand and finds something odd. As it turns out, the wound healed in a matter of seconds. This shocking revelation hits him like a ton of bricks. On the other hand, Jincheol, probably lifeless or drawing on his last reserves, lies in the corner in wait of his rescuers. He's pretty sure he hears something nearby, making him wonder what's going on. That's when Gidu's call alert catches him off guard, so he picks right up, asking if they are all right. Gidu rightfully confirms Jincheol's location to be Studio 6. Without further ado, Gidu requests Jincheol to open the door, as he is at the entrance. Completely thrown off, he tends to question if Gidu is actually there, and whether the area around him is safe. Gidu nods, giving a quick yes, saying there aren't any infected around. Getting down to opening the door, Gidu looks behind at Yuan comforting the former infected. Jincheol and the former zombie dig into Gina's homemade rice balls like they haven't eaten in 3 days. Meanwhile, Gidu pays his respects to Jincheol for keeping up the broadcast for a whole week by himself. Witnessing the crazy hunger pangs, Yihwan tells the lads to calm down, as there is enough for them. Jinchul mentions finding some food here, luckily, so he is all full for now. He figures that compared to the woman who went a full week starving, he's still in a much better spot. Eating like a maniac and gulping down water at a much faster pace, she finally takes a good long breath. And just then, she thanks her heroes for saving her life. She has no clue how to pay them back. Yihwan brushes it off, and Gidu confirms her name to be Choi Sujin. When asked, Sujin admits to working at the department store. Turns out Sujin was heading to MD for a broadcasting sponsorship when everything suddenly went haywire in the hallway. Out of nowhere, screams filled the station, coming at her from every direction. Sensing something was off, she did her best to run. But luck wasn't on her side. She stumbled right into a horde of zombies. They tore into her, dragging her into darkness. Now, as she recalls it, tears well up in her eyes. Letting her calm down, they slip into a 2-minute silence routine. Breaking the silence, Jinchul questions what's the first thing Sujin remembers after that. Thinking back, she says she heard 2 voices, which instantly stuns Yihwan and Gidu. Mild at first, she states that it grew gradually, followed by the taste of blood. Panic sets in, as Sujin bets that it felt strangely strong. Looking back, the memory is still so vivid in her mind. It lingers on her lips as if it just happened. Seeing how these hungry folks hadn't even had a moment to breathe, Yihwan decided to continue this conversation in a better setting. For now, they let the woman get some well-needed rest. Afterward, Jinchul is completely fascinated to learn that this woman is actually a former zombie. Gidu confirms that she jumped in to attack him but ends up biting Yihwan instead, only to suddenly turn human again. Not to mention, Yihwan's arm, which took the bite hard, didn't turn infected. And of course, the wound healed itself like it was never even there. Jinchul buys it totally, not in need of Gidu's evidence report. After seeing Yihwan's unnatural immunity to zombies, nothing else can surprise him. Rather, this whole situation got him thinking about a new hypothesis, since the real cause of the crisis still hasn't come out yet. Even the government couldn't keep up, and martial law turned out to be completely useless. Jinchul thinks of the possibility that it's an airborne virus, turning people into zombies. Gidu tends to ask why they haven't been affected. To counter this question, Jinchul paints quite a picture that they are primary immune bodies, with resistance to airborne infection. This whole theory kind of blows their minds. Even if their immunity only worked against airborne infection, the easy transmission through blood or saliva, like a bite, could still turn them into zombies. In the case of Yihwan, Jinchul formalized the theory of full-body immunity, making Yihwan the safest dude in the world. Thus, when Sujin tasted Yihwan's blood during the bite, it somehow turned her back into a human. This whole explanation now points straight at Yihwan. Jinchul declares that Yihwan might not just be completely immune but a walking, talking vaccine. Yihwan stands still, trying to understand what he just heard. The idea of being a vaccine seems impossible, yet everything that has happened makes him rethink it. His mind keeps going back to the events leading up to this moment, searching for an explanation. Afterward, Son Jinchul, who has been observing the situation carefully, explains that it is only a theory. However, based on what they have seen, it makes the most sense. Gidu steps in, suggesting they slow down and think things through. The situation is complicated, and rushing to conclusions will not help. Going over everything properly is the only way to understand what is happening. Afterward, they recall the moment when Sujin, already turned into a zombie, bit Yihwan. By all known rules of the infection, he should have changed as well. Yet he stands there, completely unaffected. Yihwan's blood might be the cure to stop the infection. The idea seems impossible, but given the situation, it can't be ignored. When Sujin, already turned into an infected, bit him, his blood somehow entered her mouth. Instead of making things worse, it cured her almost instantly. Normally, a virus shouldn't be neutralized that quickly, but the results speak for themselves. If this theory holds, it would also explain why the infected never attacked him. It's not just immunity. His blood itself acts as a vaccine. Even the smallest amount is enough to reverse the infection. This means Yihwan isn't just resistant to the virus. He might be the only person capable of stopping it. His blood could hold the cure the world desperately needs. If the infected can really be cured, then his parents weren't completely gone. That means they were still human, and there was a chance to save them. This thought is shocking, and Yihwan starts to rethink everything he has done. Since waking up and even while traveling here, he has defeated so many infected without stopping to think. Moreover, the thought hits him that he wasn't just trying to survive, but he had been ending lives that might have been saved. Gidu reminds him that he keeps many others safe, and there is no other way. Surviving means making tough choices, no matter how difficult they are. Since everything begins, they meet all kinds of people. Some are worse than the infected. Not every monster is a zombie. Some are humans who lose their kindness, proving that the real danger is not just the virus, but people themselves. No one can judge Yuan for his actions because he never harms anyone. If anything, he protects them. Rather than just discussing, they decide to confirm the truth. A suggestion comes up to test what Yuan has become, and the best way to do this is by making his presence known. They plan to feature him on the radio broadcast that night. This will reveal whether he truly holds the key to a cure or if something else lies beneath his existence. Yuan feels unsure about the idea of being on a live radio broadcast. The thought of speaking to so many people makes him hesitate. Later, he connects with Gina on a video call and explains his situation, how they want him to talk on radio. He fears he isn't as special as they believe and worries about raising false hope. However, Gina assures him, in this world, no one is more remarkable than him. Afterward, she suggests to him that Yuan's sister might be listening to the broadcast, encouraging him to do his best. He appreciates the support and thanks them. Realizing he needs to save his battery, he promises to talk later, but before hanging up, he asks Gina to send his regards to her parents. After the call, Sujin teases him, asking if that was his girlfriend, to which he quickly denies it, but the other person isn't convinced, pointing out that she sounded like she thinks he's really special. Afterward, Gidu joins in, making him even more embarrassed, and teases Yuan, saying even Gina's parents already believe they're a couple, so there's no point in denying it. Sun Jinchul asks if Yuan got some rest, mentioning that everything is set up and it's time to prepare, but Yuan hesitates, worried about messing up during the live broadcast. Sir reassures him, laughing, saying mistakes don't really matter in times like these. Afterwards, the radio host, Sun Jinchul, begins the broadcast, acknowledging the many messages of support and concern from listeners. Despite the scarcity of data and electricity, people still take the time to reach out, and he expresses gratitude for their kindness. To give back, he announces a special guest, the first ever on the show. He introduces the person everyone has been most curious about, the one who has given people hope in these dark times. The mysterious figure known as the Motorcycle Man, Kang Yuan, is finally on air. Afterwards, the radio host asks Kang Yuan to introduce himself to the listeners. Yuan is nervous but determined. He hesitates before speaking. He states his name and age, revealing that he works as a funeral mortician. Moreover, the host then mentions that many reports about Yuan have been received, and while some details need verification, one question stands out as the most important. He asks if it is true that the infected do not attack him. After a brief pause, Yuan confirms that the reports are indeed true, and explains that the infected neither bite nor attack him. They barely acknowledge his presence. Afterward, the host admits that it sounds unbelievable and that he struggled to accept it at first. However, after witnessing it himself multiple times, he can no longer deny the truth. The host then mentions reports suggesting Yuan has been traveling east and asks if he has a specific destination. Yuan confirms that he does. He is heading to Yangyang in Gangwon province, where his family is located, hoping to reunite with them despite the dangers along the way. Afterwards, the host acknowledges that Yangyang is quite far and wonders if any listeners are there. Suddenly, a report comes in from a listener in Socho, a nearby area. The unexpected message catches everyone's attention. The host reveals that the listener also evacuated from Yangyang to Sokcho. According to them, the military has already passed through Yangyang, leaving nothing behind. Yuan processes the news, realizing that his journey might have been for nothing, and that his family's fate remains uncertain. Yuan is trying to process the possibility that Yangyang might be completely gone. Gidu, just as alarmed, questions whether the military actually destroyed the entire area. Afterwards, the host steps in to provide clarification, explaining that according to available reports, the military did take action in Yangyang. However, the phrase "nothing left" is unclear. It could mean there are no survivors, or it might only refer to the infected being eliminated. The uncertainty leaves Yuan anxious, unsure if his family is still alive or if he has been chasing a lost cause. Afterwards, the host emphasizes the need to verify the claims before making any assumptions. Any additional details about the situation in Yangyang would help clarify what really happened. The producer confirms that the military acted when the crisis first broke out, immediately declaring martial law. However, after that initial response, their movements have been limited. In fact, reports suggest they are quickly withdrawing from metropolitan areas, leading to traffic restrictions and even more disorder. Yet, Yangyang's case might be different, suggesting something unusual happened there compared to the rest of the country. The host suggests that the military might have evacuated the survivors in Yangyang, placing them in a safer situation. Moreover, he encourages Yuan to hold on to hope. Afterwards, Yuan reflects on his sister's love for the radio. Since childhood, they always listened together, finding comfort in its presence. She believed it made their quiet home feel more alive and less lonely. If she is safe, there's no doubt she is listening to this broadcast right now, just as she always did before everything changed. Yuan remains determined, stating that no matter what has happened to Yang Yang, it doesn't change his goal, and he is going there to find his sister. Moreover, if she is listening to the broadcast, he wants her to stay strong and hold on a little longer, and promises that he will come for her, no matter what. The host acknowledges Yuan's resolve and thanks him for his efforts. The host shares that many listeners have sent supportive messages, thanking Yuan for giving them courage. Afterwards, Gidu teases him and says he was nervous at first, but adjusted quickly, joking that he might have chosen the wrong career. Yuan quickly denies it, to which Gidu advises him to get used to broadcasting because, once things settle, the media will want to interview him. He might even become a global star. Afterwards, the lady hesitates before asking a question, but the host encourages her to speak. She wonders why he didn't mention her cure during the broadcast, believing it could have given listeners hope. The host admits he left it out for Yuan's sake. If people knew his blood could heal the infected, they might just see him as a hero or a savior. While that sounds ideal, things might not be so simple because the weight of such a thing could bring unexpected consequences, ones Yuan might not be ready to face. Moreover, the host explains that if the truth about Yuan's blood spreads, he might not be seen as just a hero, but as a resource. Under the guise of helping humanity, he could end up as nothing more than a test subject. Another person agrees, acknowledging the possibility and urging Yuan to keep it a secret. With the current situation, trusting the military or the government isn't an option. The priority should be rescuing his sister. Yuan understands and decides to check the broadcasting station more thoroughly. Before he leaves, Gidu hands him a cleaned weapon. Afterwards, Yuan hesitates, wondering if he really needs to take the weapon for a quick look, but Gidu insists, saying he should take it just in case. He understands Yuan's feelings but warns him not to lower his guard. The more he does, the more vulnerable he becomes. Right now, he has every right to be selfish until he saves his sister. Yuan takes the advice to heart and thanks him before heading out, determined to continue his search. Gidu is surprised by the statement because he explains that Yuan is kind but lacks strong determination. At just 28, he still has many challenges ahead. While his kindness is a strength, it can also be a weakness in a world like this. Moreover, a gentle heart can break long before the body does. That's why Gidu's presence is so important. Every time Yuan starts to lose hope, Gidu is the one who helps him keep going. Afterwards, the host agrees that Yuan only grows stronger because of the support around him. Without help, reaching Yang Yang would be impossible, to which Gidu doesn't hesitate to say that he will assist Yuan, not just because he is an important story, but also because he once helped him. Sujin nearby hesitates before speaking. Gidu confirms that he is traveling with Yuan, to which the lady expresses her interest in joining. Gidu wasn't expecting this request and feels surprised by the sudden decision. Afterwards, Gidu hesitates for a moment before addressing Sujin's request. Traveling together isn't a simple decision, and he wonders if she has any personal connection to Yang Yang, to which Sujin explains that she was shocked when she heard about Yang Yang's situation on the radio. The military unit that moved through the area isn't just any group to her. Her father is the commander of the 4th Armored Brigade stationed there. Before proceeding further into the story, let's take a glimpse into our boy's past. There, we see an elderly woman who goes by the name Elle. Right now, she feels guilty about accepting help and money Yuan's sister is willing to offer. But Yuan's sister gently reassures her that it's no burden, just a little kindness. She hopes this woman wholeheartedly has a nice meal with her grandkids, and skipping meals isn't an option. Elle thanks her endlessly for this. A few moments later, given her struggles to pay for lunch, Yuan asks his sister why she gave the money away. She just brushes it off, saying she's got enough cash to buy an old lady lunch. She also mentions Elle climbs this hill every week or so to pick up trash and papers, even though it's kind of pointless, but she does it anyway. That's what she calls a sense of true, unseen goodwill, the mere reasons that hold humanity together. This leads her to dream that one day Yuan will carry the same goodwill forward, so she asks if he will. Ending the trip to memory lane, alone, on a bench, lost in thoughts of the past, he stares at his last messages to big sister Li Che, with unwinding sadness. Later on, Gidu tends to ask if Miss Sujin's father is the deputy commander of the 4th Armored Brigade. Sujin reveals that he is Colonel Choi Yunchul, previously stationed in Cheorwan, but reassigned to Yang Yang last year. Also, her family moved to Yang Yang, but she stayed in Seoul for work. Gidu considers that her whole world flipped upside down in just a week with no prior notice. Plus, he thinks this woman feels a sense of safety with Yuan and probably desires to come along with them. Just then, his mind did a U-turn. Colonel Choi Youngcheol, the name's quite familiar, and he served in Cheorwan until last year. Something clicks in his mind. Meanwhile, Jincheol thinks about letting Sujin tag along, which isn't so bad. Considering the military taking control over Yang Yang, he believes that it's likely to be the 4th Armored Brigade unit, and that unit is definitely gatekeeping that area, no civilians allowed. But in Ms. Sujin's case, this civilian has direct links to the executive family of the deputy commander, which makes it a whole different story. Not only that, Jinchul concludes that there isn't any safe place but the military base in moments like these. Even knowing their path to Yangyang isn't a piece of cake. It requires immense planning to get past the pack of the infected. It could take longer than expected. However, the option to leave still sounds better than staying behind and doing nothing. Sujin breaks the silence, expressing her desire to reunite with her family. Thus, they decide to discuss the matters further once Yihwan returns. Moving on, Yuan hears out Sujin's case, asking if she is coming with them. He doesn't have any problem with her tagging along, knowing her family is in Yangyang. Gidu hit Yihwan with a reality check, telling the dude that they weren't going to Yangyang for vacation. Gulping down rice balls, Yuan knows the risks are real, but in times like these, family comes first, no doubt. Also, he casually mentions traveling to Yangyang because of his sister. That's something Sujin finds relatable, hoping not to be a burden for them further along. So they ask Jinchul what's next. He says now that he's got some hope, he's going to keep broadcasting from here. With that in mind, he asks them if they can share any info they pick up on the way to Yangyang. Furthermore, Jinchul mentions getting reports from all over the country, but intel on military bases is rare. Plus, barely anyone is making long-distance trips like they are. Jinchul points out that places like Seoul and the metro area are basically shut down. He figures if the military or government is still up and running, they've probably shifted their bases out to the provinces. That's why Jinchul thinks broadcasting their journey to Yangyang as a live documentary would mean a lot to his surviving listeners. He hopes Yuan can rescue his sister and reunite with her. Meanwhile, he plans to stay put and do his part. Yuan gives him a small smile, promising to return for him. Afterward, Guido restocks Jinchul's food supply for at least a month. Jinchul worries it's risky to give away their supplies before heading to Yangyang, but Guido reassures him they'll hit a supermarket to restock. Plus, Yuan confirms the 8th floor is clear of zombies, so they're not trapped anymore. Jinchul thanks Yuan for saving him in more ways than one. He dreams of the day they can broadcast together again, and the next time with his sister too. Putting their hands together in a huddle, they wish each other good luck before parting ways. After that, Jinchul watches the trio walk away, leaving him with nothing but hope. Once our boy and his friends are out, he fires up his motorbike, leading the way as Gidu and Sujin settle into the car. With engines roaring, they hit the road at full speed, Gidu keeping close behind, following Yihwan's lead. He vows to bring Li Che back this time. With the door jammed by the pile of junk, Li Che's daughter sleeps peacefully. She softly tells her to hang in there a bit longer, telling her that Uncle Yihwan is coming to get them soon. Meanwhile, our trio's journey hits a snag when they find the highway completely jam-packed with the wreckage of abandoned cars. Even if they try, they can't even squeeze the bike through all the junk blocking their way. Gidu had already expected that their journey to Yangyang wouldn't be a walk in the park, but he hadn't accounted for this much shit. As far as he's concerned, they might have to take a much longer detour than he initially thought. Sujin takes a look at the map in her hand and suggests taking Route 86. She's confident they won't encounter this level of wreckage there. Gidu finds her idea doable, so he quickly updates Yihwan about the national road they're about to take. But it seems like Yihwan's mind is already occupied with troubling thoughts. The sight of a family lying dead in front of him makes his heart sink, but he shakes off the feeling and responds to his friend. A while later, they arrive at Namyangju Station. There, they encounter a few zombies, which the trio easily takes down with their combined efforts. Afterward, they sit back to prepare some food. Just like that, night falls, and they take shelter in their car. Yihwan stares at his phone. He's already sent countless texts to his sister, but there's still no response. Morning arrives, and the path they were following leads to a dead end. There are plenty of roads they could take, but finding one that actually leads to Yangyang is a whole different problem. Filtering out a safer route is even trickier. Eventually, they decide to take a short break here before moving on. The place is pretty secluded and peaceful, so it shouldn't be too risky. After all, they've been exhausting themselves trying to figure out the safest route. A little breather to recharge is well-deserved. Sujin takes this opportunity to head into the thick woods to do her business. As she disappears into the greenery, Gidu isn't sure if she should be roaming around like this. Then again, they can't exactly follow her either. All they can do is hope she stays safe since the direction she took only leads to an abandoned mountain. Still, it can't be easy for a woman to keep up with them, especially since they've been rushing ahead without rest or time to regroup. She must be exhausted trying to make sure she's not slowing them down. It looks like she's indeed drained from being the only woman tagging along with the boys. But at the end of the day, she can't complain since she was the one who insisted on coming along. If only he could ask Yuan to stand guard while she does her thing. But that's not an option. Her worst fear comes true when a guy, fully equipped from head to toe, suddenly stands behind her, barrel pointed right at her. Her scream echoes through the forest, so loud that Gidu and Yihwan immediately go on high alert. Yuan doesn't hesitate for even a second and bolts like a flash toward the source of that distressing scream. As he shouts her name expecting her to respond, he stumbles upon the same soldier-looking guy who has Sujin terrified. The dude demands that Yuan drop his weapon. Since there's no room for risks, our boy drops his bat without a second thought. The soldier then questions Yuan about his identity and the reason for their presence here. Yuan, on the other hand, is also trying to figure out who this guy is. It's obvious he's a survivor, but something feels off. Where did he even get that gun? He doesn't seem like a legit military guy. Not wanting to risk Sujin's life, Yuan simply raises his hands in the air and tells the guy that she's his partner. The only reason he's here is that he followed her scream. The fake soldier then demands to know why Yuan and his friend are in the mountains, since there's absolutely nothing out here. Yuan, deciding to be honest, explains their mission, which is to reach Yang and find his family. But he and his friends got lost. Unintentionally, they ended up wandering around all day and stopped here to take a breather. Not to mention, the place looked harmless, so they had no reason to move on without getting some proper rest. Finally, the fake soldier lowers his gun and apologizes for causing a panic. He acknowledges that it was rude of him to act that way. He had sensed movement in an empty mountain and mistook them for infected. He then helps the distressed Sujin get back on her feet. At last, he pulls off his helmet and introduces himself, Jang Tae-hun. As a gesture of goodwill, he apologizes once again for scaring them. Yuan, in turn, returns the polite gesture by introducing himself. It looks like Gidu has also arrived in the area, as they can clearly hear him calling Yuan out. Hearing another person approach, Jang Tae-hun immediately asks how many of them there are. Yuan flashes 3 fingers in response. Jang Tae-hun then suddenly invites them to come with him, seeing how exhausted they are. The place he's currently staying at isn't exactly comfortable, but it's still better than sleeping outside. If nothing else, there are plenty of extra rooms to accommodate everyone. Turns out there's a motel nearby, which Tae-hun stumbled upon by sheer chance. The place looks more like a pension, but they can still use it as shelter. Not to mention, it's the safest place to live right now, and the number of people taking refuge there proves it. But with so many survivors packed in one place, food is becoming a real problem. Sujin is particularly interested in knowing how many people are staying there. Tae-hun reveals that there are around 30 people, including children and women. Of course, this revelation isn't exactly great news for Gidu. From what he can tell, a pension in the valley is unlikely to have any grocery stores nearby, making food shortages an unavoidable issue. Tae-hun admits that food has always been a problem, which is precisely why he wandered out and ended up here. Apparently, he had been trying to gather supplies from markets and stores in the city's commercial hub, but the entire area was already overrun with infected people, making his food hunt a complete failure. But then, he stumbled upon a large warehouse not far from here, so he was on his way there, taking a detour through the mountains. Gidu figures that if there's really a warehouse around here, it could hold enough supplies to keep all 30 people fed for a while. Yuan suddenly points out the risks of wandering around alone and hopes that Tae-hun is fully aware of the dangers. Well, Tae-hun already took that into account before setting out on this food run. That's exactly why he came alone. If something went wrong, at least only he would be at risk. Still, for Yuan, the idea of one person gathering supplies for 30 people doesn't quite sit right. Suddenly they hear footsteps approaching. Tae-hun goes on high alert and immediately raises his gun, ready to shoot. A horde of zombies is coming straight for them. Before opening fire, Tae-hun warns our boy to step aside as standing in the middle of this mess is way too dangerous. But of course my guy doesn't seem fazed at all. Even Tae-hun can't help but take note of that little detail. Instead of backing away, he starts moving toward the infected people, completely ignoring Tae-hun's warning. After all, he doesn't want to waste bullets unnecessarily. They could be game changers in dire situations. Tae-hun still isn't sure what Yuan is getting at, until it all clicks when my guy casually pulls out his bat, fully intending to handle the situation himself. As the horde advances, Tae-hun yells at the top of his lungs, warning Yuan about the kind of danger he's throwing himself into. Taking on a massive group of infected people like this is just an invitation to his own death. But Gidu tries to calm the worried man down. He knows that putting trust in Yuan is currently in their best interest, and he's sure Tae-hun will come to the same conclusion once he sees it with his own eyes. Meanwhile, as the ugly bastards get closer, Yuan just stands there, not moving an inch. And just as expected, the zombies walk right past him, as if he doesn't even exist. Tae-hun, understandably, is losing his mind. But that's just the beginning. Because now he's about to witness Yuan smashing these bitches like numbers on an abacus. And so the battle begins. Yuan grabs one of the brainless fools and yanks him so hard over the others that they all topple over like dominoes. All it takes is a single swing of his bat per zombie. He goes absolutely nuts, delivering hit after hit, stacking up bodies like it's nothing. Meanwhile, Tae-hun's eyes are practically popping out of his skull, like he just witnessed the biggest dick to ever exist. The sheer display of strength Yuan is showing is downright ungodly. His brain is barely able to process what he just saw. And most importantly, none of the infected even tried attacking him. Seeing how utterly shocked Taehun is after witnessing Yuan's potential, Gidu can tell that Taehun hasn't been keeping up with the radio broadcasts. Gidu admits that it's indeed a little hard to believe, but what they just witnessed is very real. Zombies don't even dare to take a bite out of Yuan. With the threat neutralized, Yuan casually walks back to Taehun, ready to pick up their previous conversation like nothing just happened. He points out that even if Taehun did find a warehouse, moving enough supplies for 30 people without a vehicle would be a nightmare. In fact, it's impossible, especially since danger can come knocking at any moment, just like it did right now. But Yuan is willing to help Taehun in his efforts, making sure that everyone in the pension sleeps with their hunger satisfied. We cut to the pension in advance, where a few guards are stationed outside, keeping watch for any potential danger. That's when they notice 2 vehicles speeding toward them. Naturally, they start panicking. After all, no one in the pension owns a car or a bike. As far as they care, whoever is inside could be looters, because zombies sure as hell can't drive. Without hesitation, they straighten up their guns, ready to take these bastards down. But just as the car slams the brakes, Taehun quickly jumps out, waving his arms to stop this trigger-happy bunch. As expected, it doesn't take long for the guards to recognize him. They immediately rush toward their captain, wasting no time before asking about the people he brought with him. Taehun doesn't shy away from giving credit where it's due, acknowledging that his new companions were a massive help. Then, he shares even better news. They've found a warehouse, meaning food won't be a problem for now. The backseat of the car is packed with instant ramen and canned food. And in the trunk there are also sacks of rice. The soldiers are beyond relieved. At least for now, they can make sure no kid goes to sleep hungry. However, even though they managed to bring back a car loaded with supplies, Yuan still isn't sure if this much will be enough for everyone in the building. Taehun understands what Yuan is getting at, but since they've secured an emergency food source, they can always return to the warehouse for more. Then, without hesitation, Taehun bows his head, bobbing it up and down to express his gratitude for all the help Yuan and his friends have provided. But Yuan thinks gratitude is unnecessary, especially since Taehun has already expressed himself plenty. Then, out of nowhere, Taehun states that he needs more help, and he also wants to introduce someone to Yuan. This instantly piques Yuan's curiosity, making him wonder who exactly he's about to meet. Suddenly, a female voice echoes through the area, calling out Taehun's name. Yuan is utterly stunned when he sees who it is. Someone he wasn't expecting at all. Well, it's a doctor. She's practically dying of curiosity, eager to know why Taehun returned so suddenly, especially when he had said he wouldn't be back until at least tomorrow. To this, Taehun gestures toward his new companions, explaining how they helped him, ultimately shortening his trip. Thanks to them, he managed to find a supply warehouse and bring back much-needed food. So for now, they're all set and don't have to worry about running out. Taehun then proceeds to introduce her properly to our trio. She is Dr. Han Seoyun, one of the key people in their group, taking care of everyone here. The woman looks a little embarrassed, clearly feeling like Taehun is giving her way more credit than she deserves. In fact, she insists that Taehun is the one truly taking care of everyone, protecting them from outside threats. Not to mention, she's only in her second year of residency, so being called a doctor feels a bit excessive. Yuan takes note of something important, like how everyone here seems to trust Taehun without question. Even the guards outside referred to him as their captain, solidifying the high regard they hold him in. Anyway, Dr. Seoyun is quite interested in learning how Yuan and his group ended up here. Well, that's kind of a complicated question. So, naturally, the answer is going to be just as long and complicated. But our boy tries to sum it up in a few sentences. Apparently, they're not from around here, and they're actually trying to make their way from Seoul to Yangyang for reasons they can't disclose. Dr. Seoyun is visibly surprised to hear this. The place they're trying to reach is incredibly far from here, and with zombie-infested roads, abandoned vehicles, and sheer carnage blocking their way, making that journey is practically an impossible task. Yuan agrees with her. They've already come across countless blocked roads, forcing them to keep detouring through smaller paths. Honestly, only God knows how they even ended up here. At that moment, a guy named Myungho appears, looking for the captain. The dude is here to remind Taehun about the task of moving supplies. Taehun acknowledges him and entrusts him with the unloading work. With that, he and the doctor lead their new guests into the quarters. Not gonna lie, this Myungho guy seems kinda sus. Dawn begins to break upon them, casting soft light over the pension. Inside, people gather in the cafeteria, savoring their long-missed meals. The air buzzes with a rare sense of joy as they indulge in the mouth-watering food, something they hadn't had the luxury of enjoying in a while. Yuan looks around, surprised to see so many children. He hadn't expected there to be this many. Taehyun fills him in. There are 9 kids in total, including infants. The pension may have originally been a motel, but since it was run more like a hostel, it had a separate dining area. While they had managed to scavenge some food supplies, they were never enough to last more than a few days. If not for Yihwan and his friends, that problem wouldn't have been solved. Taehyun, for one, is incredibly grateful. As usual, Yuan downplays his contributions. Moving on, Yuan has a question that's been gnawing at him for a while now. He's noticed that the guards outside, and pretty much everyone here, calls Taehyun Captain. He wonders if there's a particular reason behind this title. Being the modest person he is, Taehyun admits that he initially felt overwhelmed being called Captain, but over time he's grown used to it. Before the conversation can go any further, a soldier appears looking for Taehyun. Apparently, Dr. Seo-yoon wants to meet him. Figuring that it must be something important, Taehyun decides to see her. We cut to Dr. Seo-yoon's bewildered expression. She's in shock after learning that Yihwan doesn't attract zombies. Not only do they not try to bite him, but they show no aggression toward him at all. In fact, they don't even seem to recognize him, as if he doesn't exist. It's like he's invisible to them. Taehyun backs up Yihwan's claim, having witnessed it firsthand. He recalls how the infected didn't even acknowledge Yihwan, despite him standing completely defenseless among them. Even after seeing it with his own eyes, he still finds it hard to believe. That's why he's hoping Dr. Seo-yoon can offer some kind of logical explanation for Yihwan's condition. The doctor admits that there must be a medical reason behind it, but she won't know for sure until she conducts a thorough examination. She also has a hypothesis that all this madness was caused by an infection. However, without definitive answers, it's just speculation for now. Yihwan lets that sink in before posing a question of his own. If this outbreak is caused by a viral infection, is there any chance of developing a vaccine or cure? Dr. Seo-yoon hesitates before answering. In theory, it might be possible. But with all infrastructure destroyed and no personnel or equipment available, the chances of success are practically non-existent. Even if Yihwan has some kind of immunity, that doesn't necessarily mean they can create a medicine from it. Well, it looks like Yihwan still hasn't revealed the most crucial detail about him, which is that his blood can bring mindless zombies back to their senses. Eventually, he decides to explain. Any infected who ingests his blood can fully recover. With that in mind, he asks if this could increase the possibility of developing a cure. Gidu and Sujin, who had been quietly listening, are completely stunned. They hadn't expected him to reveal such critical information. Taehyun, too, is suddenly very intrigued. He wants Yihwan to elaborate further. That's when Yihwan clears the air of doubt. He reveals that he was once bitten on the arm by an infected, but instead of turning into an infected himself, nothing happened to him. On the contrary, the infected person who bit him regained consciousness and returned to normal. After coming to their senses, they only experienced mild chills and dehydration, but no other health issues. Gidu and Sujin quickly realize that Yihwan is deliberately avoiding mentioning that the infected person was Sujin. In this case, Gidu and Sujin also decide to act as though they don't know anything about what Yihwan is saying. Meanwhile, Yihwan elaborates further. If his blood itself acts as a vaccine, then maybe people could be cured without the need for extensive research. Dr. Seo-yoon takes a contemplative pause before speaking. She doesn't doubt Yihwan's words, especially after everything he's done for them. But as a doctor, she can't just take his word for it. She wants to conduct a test on a real infected person. She needs to see the cure working with her own eyes. The mention of an experiment makes it sound like she wants to turn Yihwan into nothing more than a lab rat. Sensing this, Dr. Seo-yoon quickly rephrases her request. Rather than calling it an experiment, she insists that it's more of a request. Taehyun quickly catches on to what she's thinking. There seems to be a specific test subject in mind, someone she wants Yihwan to cure. And as it turns out, they were already prepared for this. Dr. Seo-yoon finally reveals the truth. There's an infected person inside this building. She assures them that they have been quarantined in the basement storage room for 3 days now. At first, everyone thought the person was just sick with the flu. But then, symptoms of infection started to appear. And before long, they became aggressive and started attacking people. In the end, Taehyun had to lure them into the basement and barely managed to lock them inside. Now they have a chance to see if Yihwan's blood can truly cure the infected. Gidu questions if that person had been bitten in the past. Dr. Seo-yoon responds with a firm no. They had made sure to examine the victim thoroughly, but they found no external wounds or any scars. Sujin then questions Gidu about whether an infected person can take this long to show symptoms of the infection. For Gidu, this case is unprecedented. He has never seen anything like it before, though he speculates that the infection might manifest differently depending on a person's constitution. Yihwan fully understands his role in this experiment. He is supposed to feed the infected his blood and observe whether they can be cured. Dr. Seo-yoon responds positively to this notion. If an infected person truly recovers after ingesting Yihwan's blood, this would mean that not only is Yihwan immune, but he might be the cure itself. A living, breathing vaccine. Of course, Yihwan and Gidu both begin to panic at hearing those words. They have heard them before. The consequences of being a living vaccine are clear. Yuan could end up as nothing more than a lab rat for scientists eager to experiment on him. Gidu voices his concerns. Making the infected bite Yihwan on purpose is incredibly dangerous. There's no telling what other risks might arise. Dr. Seoyun quickly clarifies her intentions that she doesn't want Yuan to be bitten. Instead, she turns to a drawer and pulls out an empty syringe, implying that all they need to do is get his blood into the infected person's body. Using a syringe should be effective enough. However, since no one else can safely approach the infected, it will be Yuan's responsibility to inject them. After a brief silence, Yuan accepts the task, which naturally causes Gidu to freak out. Yet Yuan remains steadfast. Even if there's only a small chance, he wants to give it his best. Later, as night approaches, the scene shifts outside. A guard standing by the gate feels a swell of pride for his captain, who successfully brought food back. Thanks to him, they won't have to worry about starvation for a while. Standing nearby is Myung-ho, the same deadbeat guy we have seen earlier. He seems lost in his own thoughts, prompting his fellow guard to snap him out of it by calling his name loudly. The talkative guy suddenly walks away, as he is annoyed after constantly being ignored. Meanwhile, Myung-ho's eyes settle on the vehicles that Yihwan's group arrived in. As I've mentioned earlier, this guy looks suspicious as hell. It wouldn't be surprising if he tried something shady. Back inside, Taehyun questions Yihwan about his decision to take part in the experiment. If he doesn't feel up to it, he doesn't have to force himself. As expected, Yihwan remains resolute. He assures Taehyun that he can handle it just fine. Besides, he was the one who brought it up, so backing down isn't an option. That's when Taehyun brings their attention to a little girl sitting across from them. It turns out that the infected person in the basement is her mother. This revelation sends a shiver down Yuan's spine. The child's backstory is even more heartbreaking. Fate had already been cruel to her. She had witnessed her father turning into one of the infected. Worse, he had tried to attack them. Her mother was brave enough to escape along with her daughter and seek shelter here, but in the end, she too succumbed to the infection. Almost 3 days ago, when her mother first showed symptoms, they managed to avoid being bitten. But for the safety of everyone else, Taehyun had no option other than to shoot her mother. Yet, in the end, he couldn't bear to see the desperate sobs of the little girl. Ultimately, he couldn't bring himself to finish the job. Instead, he and a few others forcefully locked her mother in the basement rather than killing her outright. It was the only way to ensure everyone's survival. As for the daughter, she was told that her mother would recover one day. This tragic story leaves the trio in stunned silence. Their hearts sink in remorse for the little girl, who has suffered so much loss. When Yuan looks at her, she reminds him of his own sweet niece, his sister's daughter. This only strengthens his resolve. He is determined to take the risk head-on. Turning to Taehyun, he assures him that he will be the light of hope in the girl's dark and lifeless world. And the key to that hope is his blood, which he now holds in his hand. Moments later, a soldier arrives, reporting that it's almost time for the shift change. Taehyun acknowledges the report and assures the soldier that he will be there soon. Before leaving, he informs the trio that 2 rooms have been prepared for them to rest in. He hopes they can get some well-deserved sleep. Gidu is overjoyed at the thought of proper rest. At this point, being able to sleep properly is the biggest luxury they could ask for. After bidding goodnight and expressing his gratitude, Taehyun begins ascending the stairs, leaving Yihwan beaming with joy at the warmth of their host. Sujin can't help but comment on how reliable and kind Taehyun is. He truly embodies the virtues of a great leader, taking care of his people. While Sujin and Yihwan appreciate the positive aspects of this place, Gidu can't shake off the eerie feeling creeping up on him. Something about this place feels suspicious. The first important thing to note is that everyone here is armed with rifles, even though this is definitely not a military base. They have established defenses around the motel and even enforce guard shifts. All of this seems excessive for a group of civilians merely trying to survive. At that moment, Myung-ho, the same deadbeat guy from earlier, appears behind Gidu and reveals that their captain was a soldier. The sudden interjection shocks Gidu so much that his brain.exe crashes for a moment. He regains his composure and questions Myung-ho about his statement. Myung-ho further elaborates that Taehyun was a platoon leader in the 13th Army Division, and that the rifles were taken from his unit. Now, it all makes sense to Gidu why everyone refers to him as captain. Before leaving, Myung-ho acknowledges Gidu's right to be suspicious. However, he warns him to be careful about voicing his concerns. Everyone here loves their captain unconditionally, and they won't take kindly to someone doubting him. As Myung-ho prepares to leave, Yuan stops him with a question of his own. If Taehyun was a military officer, why did he abandon his unit and end up here? Myung-ho remains silent for a moment before stating that Taehyun deserted his unit. That's why he earned the title of deserter officer. Gidu does not take this revelation in a positive light. Myung-ho, meanwhile, admits that he doesn't know the exact reason behind Taehyun's desertion, but confirms that it's true, as he has verified it with the captain himself. While Gidu now understands how they acquired their weapons, Sujin raises another question, wondering if Taehoon ever intends to return to the military. Myungho does not give a definitive answer and instead suggests she ask Taehoon directly. Apparently, no one here has had the courage to ask him, nor does anyone seem to care about his past. With that, Myungho walks away, leaving the trio deep in thought. Sujin starts doubting whether staying here is a good idea. Gidu also feels uneasy. There's too much that doesn't make sense. He turns to Yehwan, wanting to know his thoughts. Gidu acknowledges that these people may not be dangerous to Yehwan specifically, but he is not sure if they can really be trusted. Yehwan glances at the little girl who lost her mother to the infection. He acknowledges that everyone here has their own story, but that isn't what matters right now. Right now, he just wants to do what he can. If it's the right thing to do, he won't back down. Later that night, we cut to Taehoon, who is sitting alone, quietly fulfilling his duty. The camera focuses on his wristband, zooming in to reveal his name and serial number. His eyes, filled with remorse, make it clear that he is haunted by his past. This is then a memory from his past resurfaces. His entire unit has turned into mindless zombies, feasting upon each other. Among them is his best friend, Junchul, who also fell victim to the madness. The loss was devastating, so much so that Taehoon had screamed at the top of his lungs. To this day, those memories haunt him, making him uncomfortable and angry whenever they resurface. Dr. Seoyun joins him as well, asking why he is standing guard alone. Taehoon, still lost in his memories, turns to her with a smile, carefully masking his distress. Seoyun worries that he is pushing himself too hard and urges him to rest, but he brushes it off. He's simply doing what he can. Everyone here is struggling. If he has the strength to contribute, he won't hold back. Still, Seoyun is concerned. She knows he hasn't been sleeping. She gently asks if he is still having nightmares. Taehoon merely smiles, assuring her that he has grown strong enough to endure them. Besides, he believes this is a punishment he deserves. In fact, this punishment is so light that it's a blessing compared to the sins he has committed. Seoyun places a comforting hand on his lap, urging him not to be too hard on himself. He is their leader, their source of hope. Hearing this, Taehoon manages a faint smile. He hopes to do his best not to disappoint those who trust him. As they share this moment, we cut to Myungho once again. As usual, he lurks in the shadows, watching the captain closely, his presence as unsettling as ever. The next day, rain pours heavily. Inside the building, our trio eats breakfast. Gidu notes that the downpour doesn't seem like it will stop anytime soon. He's relieved they found shelter, as staying outside in this weather would have been a nightmare. Sujin also agrees, admitting she hadn't considered how unpredictable the weather would be. However, there's another issue. If they stay another night, they might fall too far behind in their mission to reach Yangyang. So Gidu turns to Yehwan for his opinion. Yehwan, however, is lost in thought, staring at the unanswered texts he had sent his sister days ago. Eventually, he speaks, revealing that they will leave by noon. Suddenly, Seoyun and Taehoon join them in the dining area and ask the trio if they slept well. The trio confirms they got the much-needed rest they had longed for, all thanks to Taehoon's hospitality. But Taehoon believes gratitude is unnecessary. Yehwan is the one who has genuinely helped the people here, and no amount of thanks can match his contribution. Back to business. Taehoon tries to convince Yehwan to stay another night since the weather is unforgiving. However, Yehwan has made up his mind. They cannot afford to seek comfort while on this mission. Still, he promises to complete the task he has taken upon himself. Without further delay, Yehwan requests to be taken to the basement where the infected woman is being restrained. Taehoon hesitates for a moment but ultimately agrees. The group arrives outside the storage room. Taehoon hands Yehwan a torch, while Dr. Seoyun gives him the syringe containing his blood. All he has to do is drip a few drops into the infected woman's mouth. Understanding his task, Yehwan opens the door, but not before warning everyone to step away from the entrance. They can't afford any risks. Once inside, he shuts the door behind him to ensure the infected woman doesn't escape. Taehoon is bewildered by Yehwan's calm demeanor in the face of danger. However, Gidu isn't surprised. He has seen enough to know that Yehwan would go to any lengths to help others. Yehwan finally spots the infected woman under the torch's bright light. She growls at him, instinctively reacting to the sudden illumination. Yet Yehwan greets her as if they are best buddies forever, assuring her that she is just a few drops of blood away from reuniting with her distressed daughter. While Kang Yehwan is isolated in a room with a mommy zombie as his only company, the rest of the gang waited outside, holding their breaths anxiously. Dr. Han Seoyun is starting to sense a bad feeling. The young man has been inside for quite a while, yet the silence is deafening. Jang Taehoon sees this as positive. No noises mean no attacks. They just have to place their faith in Yehwan being truly immune and invisible to the infected. Looking around, Taehoon noticed reporter Kim's grim expression and asked if he was okay. He himself is fine, but he could not help but feel a little worried about Yehwan. The motorcycle hero may seem composed on the outside, but he's actually a big softy. In the few days that Kim Gi-doo spent with him, he came to know Yi-hwan pretty well. When it comes to helping others, that guy never hesitates. Sometimes he pushes himself way too hard for the sake of others. When all those efforts come to nothing and he fails to help someone, the despair hits him harder than anyone. If, by any chance, he fails to save the infected trapped inside the dark room using the blood syringe, he will be utterly devastated. Dr. Han listened to Kim Gi-doo and could not help but feel a little guilty. Now she's worried that she might have pushed the young man too hard and asked for too much in this mission. Reporter Kim immediately assured her that Yi-hwan is entirely responsible for his decision. Knowing that guy, he would have definitely helped either way if he knew the problem. Suddenly, the steel doors slowly opened. Yi-hwan walked outside and asked Dr. Han for a little help inside. Her anxiety-ridden mind immediately jumped to the worst possibility that she might have gotten him hurt or something. But the young man was 100% fine. It's just that Mommy Zombie is having a hard time moving, let alone standing up, due to dehydration. She's dangerously thirsty. After making sure that everything was okay, the gang escorted Mommy Zombie out of the dark room and into the infirmary to get some fluids into her. Dr. Han and Captain Jang stuck to her bedside, closely monitoring her status at all times. They also allowed the kid to see her mom again. The ex-zombie is still having a hard time adjusting. She's burning up, but it sure does beat being a zombie. Right now, she just feels bad for making everyone worry. With apprehension in her voice, she asked if she had attacked anyone while she was in her infected state. Dr. Han assured her that Tae-hun handled everything well and made sure that everyone was safe. Mommy Zombie can tell that these people who barely knew her had a hard time because of her unfortunate fate, and for that, she is truly sorry. Hearing such kind and tender words seemed to have an adverse effect on the doctor. The captain could sense it. Dr. Han asserted that she did not even do anything. She could not treat those who needed treatment or stop the infection. Since they have holed up in this motel, she feels like she's done nothing at all. The tears that she had been holding back since the world turned to shit finally burst through as her emotional dam breaks. She felt useless, like a leech that could only rely on others to survive. Mommy Zombie just woke up from being a rotting undead being, and now the doctor is hogging her spotlight. The captain placed his hand on Dr. Han's shoulder with firm support. He knows how hard she works for the community. She has done more than enough to keep their people safe and healthy. Without her, they would lose one of their most reliable pillars. Without the doctor, Yi-hwan would not have been able to cure Zombie Mommy right here. The doctor might feel like she's lacking, but she's an essential part of this group. The captain's reassuring words finally calmed her down a little. Specialist surgeon Han Seoyeon wiped her tears away and steeled her resolve to do better in the future. Zombie Mommy asked Tae-hun about the man who saved her, that Yi-hwan guy, and the captain answered that Mr. Savior is just outside the room. He said he wanted to get some fresh air, but that might be a little hard given how hard the rain is pouring outside. Sitting near one of the motel entrances, Yi-hwan listlessly looked at the downpour, his thoughts wandering. Choi Soo-jin snuck up behind him to ask why he was hanging out all alone in the rain. She had also ditched the clothes she had been wearing since the outbreak started. Fortunately, the motel people had plenty of clothing in their supplies, so she found some that were her size. Yi-hwan confessed that he wasn't expecting to feel more tense than he thought. Now that everything's been settled and the infected are saved, he suddenly feels the days of fatigue catch up to his body. Throughout the process inside that dark room, he kept on wondering what he would do and what would happen if his blood did not work this time around. Soo-jin assured him that such thoughts are useless. As someone personally saved by that blood, she would know. The first one was an accident. The second one is proof. He might just really be this world's last hope, but he's not the type to proclaim himself in that manner. After a brief moment of thought, Soo-jin finally brought up the reason why she came out here to look for Yi-hwan. She had to make sure to find him before the others were made aware of who cured that zombie. Right now, the motel's citizens just think her condition has miraculously improved on its own. But it won't be long before they start discussing amongst themselves, theorizing, and asking questions. Before all that chaos happens, Soo-jin wants to make a prudent suggestion. A suggestion that would be better for both the motel people and for Yi-hwan himself. Meanwhile, reporter Kim's car and Yi-hwan's stolen bike finally got some much-needed washing out in the parking lot. After discussing the details with Yi-hwan, Soo-jin brought up the idea to the doctor and the captain. She proposed that they keep this cure under wraps. They must cover up what really happened and what solved the rotting problem. Soo-jin had thought about the implications of Yi-hwan's condition a lot, and this is the best option she could come up with. Captain Jang Tae-hun, ever the short-sighted brute, thought that it would be better to let everyone know that Yi-hwan can be their savior. He could be a symbol of hope, something that is in such short supply these days. Reporter Kim and the savior in question were torn. Soo-jin asserted that hope is exactly what she is worried about. If people find out that Yi-hwan's blood can cure the infection, it would only be a matter of time before an all-out fight erupts to claim him for themselves. Knowing humans, it is inevitable. The people in this room were too blinded by success and hope that they had forgotten how the world works. Everyone here must have lost loved ones to the outbreak, one way or another. If they had a way to save people they love, they would do anything to get their hands on that method. If they let the public in on Yihwan's secret, can they really guarantee his safety? Sujin is the only one here who has functioning brain cells, and she was a zombie just a few days ago. Reporter Kim just caught on to what she's been campaigning. Yihwan's miracle blood could easily become the catalyst for unbridled chaos. Once the information goes out there, all sorts of unknown elements and factions might come running to try and take Yihwan's blood for themselves. Sure, the kid has the strength and bizarre power to handle most of them, but what would happen if someone armed with rifles gets into the mix? That would be a different bloody story. Ironically enough, while zombies are not a threat to the young man at all, other surviving humans could very well be his end. Reporter Kim was just glad that Sujin was sharp enough to think far ahead for the sake of their friend. While she hates to be the one insisting on keeping the secret under wraps, this issue is something that cannot be ignored. Until they are absolutely sure that they can provide security, they cannot take the risk of leaking groundbreaking information. So, before they can come to a decision, Sujin wants to know if the captain can guarantee Yihwan's safety. Her question sent the doctor and the captain into deep thought. Of course, Sujin asked, not because of doubt, but out of caution instead. If they have even the tiniest bit of uncertainty, it would be best to err on the side of caution. Yihwan could very well be humanity's last hope after all. Reporter Kim recalled PD Sun expressing the same concerns a few days ago. He even went a step further and posited that if people find out about the miraculous blood cure, some powerful people might rush in to take Yihwan and make him a scientific lab rat. Of course, Yihwan is practically peerless in melee combat. No one can overpower that guy. But if they have rifles, his inhuman strength would be easily negated. Thanks to Sujin, they can deliberate and come up with smart decisions. Don't you hate it when zombie casts are stupid? After mulling it over for a moment, the doctor was the first one to agree that they should conceal the truth for the time being. She trusts everyone in this room who is dealing with such a sensitive topic. But if the information ever spreads, it will undoubtedly cause major unrest. Since many in this place and everywhere else in this new world have been hurt, their pain could explode in the wrong direction. Keeping the truth hidden would be the best for everyone's safety. Now that they have agreed to keep the truth about the nuke a secret, Yihwan's mind jumped to another matter. He asked Dr. Han if the motel had enough medical supplies stocked up. Well, to be quite honest, the minuscule stockpile of meds in this place is close to putting the group in dire straits. They're barely getting by as is, and if anyone falls ill, they might be completely helpless. Captain Taehun managed to gather some supplies from a small clinic nearby, but it was far from enough to sustain a whole community. Yihwan just asked so he could help to the best of his power. Before they left for their primary objective, he asked for a list of necessary medical supplies that would help the people of Motel Moonlight. The rain continued and showed no signs of stopping anytime soon. Dr. Han listed down some much-needed supplies as extensively and clearly as she could, and handed them to reporter Kim. Even though she appreciated their help, she still felt reluctant to send them into a city overrun with infected people. Mr. Reporter just smiled at her concern. He is well aware of the danger out there, but if it's for everyone else's safety and health, helping is the only way the gang would feel at ease leaving, especially for that headstrong superhuman. Besides, they are armed to the teeth, and most importantly, they have the natural counter to zombies on their side. Oddly enough, that freckled weirdo, Ha Myung-ho, had also put on a raincoat and prepared the firearms for the mission. The captain assured him that he's already done enough and does not have to tag along and go so far, but he's insistent on joining in. Even though the dangers are obvious, the weirdo is still willing to put his safety on the line. According to him, he wants to help however he can, and they need all the hands they can get. The captain was moved by Myung-ho's words. He appreciated having one of his men by his side as they ventured deep into the urban area overrun by the undead. With the final preparations concluded, reporter Kim asked the captain and his subordinate to hop in the car. Sujin and the doctor saw them off, wishing them luck as they braved the rainy, damp apocalypse. For a brief second, the doctor and the captain exchanged a meaningful glance, the kind of glimpse that says 1,000 words without saying a single one. Finally, reporter Kim stepped on the gas and sped off. Sujin turned to Dr. Han and assured the anxiety-filled physician that Yihwan would keep everyone safe, so there was no need to worry. Still, Dr. Han can't help but feel a knot in her stomach. Seeing her forlorn expression, Sujin cheekily smiled with recognition. To break the tension in the beautiful doctor's face, Sujin asked how long she and Captain Taehun had been so close. Immediately she blushed and jumped in fright, acting defensively. Teasing even further, Sujin exclaimed that the way the two exchanged sticky and affectionate glances would make anyone jealous. While the girls were having their immature fun, the same was happening inside the car speeding off to the city. Reporter Kim is grilling the captain about his relationship with Dr. Han, and he's having a ton of fun doing so. Kim Gi-doo is a seasoned journalist. There's no use in hiding a secret from him. To stop the teasing, Captain Tae-hun maintained that Han Seo-yun was simply someone he relied on a lot. That's it, nothing more and nothing less. Reporter Kim sarcastically accepted the answer, his ugly lovey-dovey expression telegraphing his true assessment. He simply believes that when a man and a woman rely on each other a lot, things tend to happen. While the front seats were full of teasing and banter, the back seat was filled with weird, brooding dark air with Myung-ho glaring forward. They traversed the slippery road until they reached the city's center. Reporter Kim pulled up to the curb and confirmed the place that the doctor mentioned. A smaller hospital should be easier to find and locate than running the risk of targeting a big hospital. Luckily for them, the area seems quiet. Still, they can't afford to be complacent. They have to move carefully and methodically. A few minutes later, Yuan peeked out of the pharmacy door after verifying that the interior was not crawling with zombies. Surprisingly, this mission is going a lot smoother than expected. They didn't have any problems on the road, and the building itself is completely devoid of the undead. Inside, signs of struggle and chaos remained scattered throughout the place. Some people might have fallen victim to this very place. Meanwhile, the team diligently searches every inch of the hospital for anything that could be handy. Aside from the list, they might as well grab whatever looks useful, and the doctor will sort it out. Ha Myung-ho quietly opened one of the many desk drawers around and saw something that made him pause. Inside was a heavy-duty padlock with a key stuck inside. If you're asking why his eyes widened upon seeing such a thing, I don't know. Keep watching. When he heard the captain's voice asking him if he had found anything that could be of use, the weirdo looked like he had just been struck by lightning. Myung-ho slammed the drawer shut. He did so, after grabbing the padlock and concealing the thing away from the captain's sight. With this little tool, this fucking ugly bum can finally enact whatever he truly came here to do. It's still raining outside, and the team is busy plundering the inner-city hospital. The four reached the 8th floor and carefully scouted the immediate area. The captain expertly cleared corners like a sweaty Counter-Strike player. Reporter Kim is already tired of the grind, but at least they only have one more floor left to scavenge. Furthermore, they managed to find more supplies than expected. It's a good haul. The 8th floor is split into 2 sections. They figured it would be more efficient to split up and scour the sections separately. Reporter Kim will go with the captain, and Yi Hwan is stuck with the weirdo, Myung-ho. Without any functioning lights, it got extra dark on the top floor. Something could just jump out of the shadows. Before finally splitting up, they all agreed to run at each other the moment they heard an unusual noise. Finally, the group of 4 had been dissected into 2. Myung-ho remained silent, creeping behind while scheming some diabolical plan. On the reporter captain's side, they were disappointed at the lack of useful stuff on the last floor. The only salvageable thing Tae-hun could scrounge was the stale supplies left in the break room. They might as well take everything they can get. Up until yesterday, the motel was so short of food that they could not even afford to pack snacks for the kids. These treats should liven the young ones up. Now that they were alone, reporter Kim found it to be a fitting time to ask about the captain's past. All he knows is that Tae-hun used to be a military officer. Upon hearing the mention of his past, the captain uncharacteristically trembled and went silent. A few moments later, he awkwardly turned to Kim Gi-doo and apologized for not coming clean sooner. He really did not mean to hide his past. He just hoped that these helpful passing guests would not find out. You see, what he went through can't really be described as a very pleasant story. Curious, reporter Kim asked for more details about whether that would be fine with Cap. Tae-hun closed his eyes, recalling the events that led him to the motel and the nightmare that he had to go through just to survive. You see, it's not hard for him to answer, but he feels as though he doesn't deserve to tell the story. He's not proud of what he did. He killed his own subordinates, and he will have to live with that burden for the rest of his life. He thinks he's a sinner who can never be forgiven. What happened that day happened in an instant. It was bloody, brutal, and dreadful. His unit was suddenly deployed in an unknown location without knowing the objective. Then, before even reaching their destination, a few of his men started having severe seizures. When those subsided, they started acting strangely. They started attacking their brothers in arms, and the situation devolved into an out-of-control bloodbath. There was nothing the captain could do. The last thing he remembered was instinctively picking up his gun upon seeing his men feast on the flesh of their comrades in front of him. When they were done tearing the meat off of their unfortunate brothers, the infected turned their attention to the shaken captain. In that moment, as his hands trembled at the weight of the firearm, only one thought remained in his head. He has to survive. It's kill or be killed. He pulled the trigger and started unloading bullet after bullet deep into the craniums of his brothers, not stopping until everyone was on the ground. It's a difficult memory to relive. After the massacre, Tae-hun grabbed every firearm and ammunition he could carry and escaped alone into the night. Eventually, he found himself in Motel Moonlight. He carries deep shame and remorse as a disgraced soldier. Once everything subsides, he wants to return to the military and face fair judgment as soon as possible. Or at least that was his plan before. He can't turn himself over just yet. He still has things to do, people that rely on him, and a community to lead and protect. The captain must sound crazy, given the current state of things, but reporter Kim reckoned that this man must be suffering from survivor's guilt and a suffocating sense of duty. Now he can see why Cap and Yihwan get along so well. These two men are simply cut from the same heroic cloth. Kim Gi-doo apologized for asking such a painful question. He just could not help it. It's just a habit stemming from being a journalist for so long. To go through that and still carry on the responsibility of taking care of survivors takes a different level of resolve. It's understandable why everyone in his community calls him the captain. It's not just a rank, it's a vote of confidence. Then, reporter Kim thought it odd that one of his men called the Cap a deserter. It's an odd way of phrasing it, given the circumstance. Why would that person who tagged along in this mission label Taehoon so harshly? In the other section of the building, Yihwan is busy looking around for anything he could bring back to the group. Unfortunately, he found a notice of closure. The floor must have been preparing to shut down before the world went to shit. No wonder there's barely anything left to loot. This last floor tour was a waste of time from Yuwan's section. He turned to his partner Myung-ho and told the guy about the closure, saying they should just get back with the others. For the first time since this mission started, Myung-ho opened his mouth and asked Yihwan a curious question. He has questions about Ji-eun, the woman who was infected and was suddenly cured. He thinks the treatment has something to do with Yihwan and the new arrivals. Hearing the accurate assumption made Yihwan feel a sense of crisis. Stumbling over his words, he tried to deny the allegation and credited Dr. Han for the woman's recovery. However, the weirdo is already dead set on his theory. He does not exactly know how that woman had been cured, but he knows that Yihwan's crew is responsible for it. And now, they are hiding the facts so people would not panic. Crazy and observant. Too bad he's a creep. Yihwan was not expecting to be cornered with cutting questions in this place. Knowing that he can't bullshit his way out of this, he tried to excuse that they have a very good reason for keeping the facts secret. Myung-ho already has a picture of what happened. He reckoned that the captain made the call. After all, Taehoon makes those kinds of big decisions. He created the rules, and the motel people must follow them. They just stay quiet and obey. Myung-ho is so sick and tired of living such a subservient life. As an act of liberation, he raised his automatic rifle and aimed it at Yihwan. With a healthy distance between them, he can't even brute force his way forward without inevitably getting shot down. The bastard had finally snapped, and now he had the opportunity to do something about it. In the other section of the 8th floor, they were knocked back into reality by a loud gunshot. Fearing that something had happened to Yihwan somehow, the captain and the reporter turned to run after the sound. That's when they spotted Myung-ho with his rifle strapped on his back while he grabbed onto the metal door. With a crazed grin, he pulled the metal door down as fast as he could. A loud metallic crash echoed throughout the whole section. Panicking, the captain banged on the door while yelling at Myung-ho to stop this nonsense. Then he heard a mocking voice telling him to stay still and enjoy the empty floor. Cap heard a click, the sound of a key firmly securing the padlock in a single turn. Myung-ho snickered that Taehoon should actually be grateful that he's just locking them up instead of doing something worse. The weirdo had already made Yihwan an example of what a crazy bastard is capable of. Flat on his ass, the hero of our story is now bleeding from a gunshot wound on his abdomen. Back in the motel, the time for shifting guard duties has come. The on-duty guard complained about the downpour when it's not even the rainy season yet. At this rate, even zombies would not be able to roam the streets. Since it looks like the torrential drops won't stop, it would be wiser to just guard the entrance instead of walking around the muddy perimeter. While checking his equipment, the next guard noticed that there was not a single bullet in his magazines. They haven't fired at anything lately, so this was unnatural. The first guard realized that he was patrolling the area with an empty gun. That could have been dangerous. He usually checks weapons before shifts, but today, Myung-ho just handed him the rifle and assured him that it was already sorted. They wonder if Myung-ho made a mistake, unaware of what's happening in the abandoned hospital. The captain continued banging on the metal door while trying to call on the bastard. Reporter Kim, on the other hand, was more concerned with Yihwan's safety. Myung-ho raised his gun and aimed it at the captain. The one he's holding is loaded as opposed to the captain's empty mags. The bastard has all the power here. He could just shoot these two and leave, but he thinks it would be better to save bullets and just let the captain and the reporter perish in an empty prison. Of course, he did not have much choice with that monster Yihwan. One bullet was all it took. Hearing the bastard talk about what he did to his dear friends sapped all of reporter Kim's strength. This fool does not even realize what he's done. He just destroyed humanity's last hope. Because of some petty reason, the way to end all suffering and carnage is gone. Hearing the reporter break down and fall to his knees made Myung-ho smirk in amusement. He thinks that this outcome was simply perfect. That's because he's one of those fuckers who would prefer this world to stay just the way it is right now. He's an absolute lunatic scumtrash. The captain and the reporter looked at the maniac with confusion. Myung-ho is just glad that he eliminated someone who would have been a big obstacle to his plans. With the hope of humanity's death, despair shall come. Finally, the lunatic turned to the exit, made his way down the stairs, and left. Unbeknownst to him, Yihwan's supposedly lifeless body started slightly trembling. Blood started freely flowing out of his mouth, clearing his airways. When he gradually opened his eyes, a bloodthirsty glint had taken over. From the stairs up to the top floor, sounds of metal clashing against metal could be heard. The captain had been desperately trying to smash his way out of the padlocked door for quite a while now. Reporter Kim had already surrendered with the brute force method and asked Tae-hoon to stop overstraining himself with futile efforts. He'd rather sit, calm down, and try to think of a solution. Meanwhile, the captain blamed himself for everything that happened today. He really should have realized what kind of snake he was surrounding himself with. He thinks Yiwon's blood rests on his hands for this massive blunder. However, reporter Kim knows that the fault does not lie with the captain. No one could have seen this coming. That lunatic hid himself well. Just the fact that he handed out unloaded guns is an indication enough that this stunt was a carefully planned scheme. That bastard even made it so that the group would leave the car keys for a quick escape just in case. He made sure to concoct a perfect opportunity to execute this betrayal. Just thinking about how that monster is about to return to the motel makes the captain's stomach turn. He fears that his people are in grave danger, but that's all the more reason that they should stay calm. First, they need to find a feasible way to get out of this prison safely. Finally, an epiphany struck the reporter as he remembered something neatly tucked away in his coat. Reaching into his inner pocket, he cursed himself for being such an idiot and not remembering soon enough. He almost forgot that the revolver that Yi Hwan had looted from those gas station lowlifes was with him. He promised to explain how and when he got a pistol in this gun-banned country. First, they need to break the lock. Reporter Kim brought down the gun and aimed squarely at the padlock, asking the captain if he should pull the trigger. He was so excited that he almost killed himself. Thankfully, the captain responded fast enough to warn him about the possible ricochet. Just as they were about to back up a little for a safer shot, a shadow towered over Kim Gi-do. Kang Yi-hwan is alive. The man is breathing, bleeding, huffing, and puffing. Reporter Kim looked his friend in the eye and was stunned. Somehow this guy seemed completely different than the gentle Yi Hwan he knew. The last thing the bleeding mess remembered was standing in front of that bastard and getting shot without warning. Once the betrayal clicked in his head, a wave of rage took over Yi Hwan. He grabbed onto the padlock, wrapped his fingers around its grooves, and easily tore it apart by force. Without sparing another second, he turned to the exit. Reporter Kim tried to call him, but his mind was already distracted by the thought of something else. Now that the metal door is open, the captain and the reporter follow the bloodthirsty demon. Back in Motel Moonlight, Cap's worst fears had just taken place. Every guard in the vicinity had been mercilessly massacred. Inside, the perpetrator is enjoying every second of tearing through the place he once called home. He liked how the residents squirmed and hid after hearing the noise he made outside. Myung-ho does not mind all the hiding and cowering. These people don't have anywhere to go to anyway. Standing up against his crazy onslaught was Dr. Han. She's using her body to shield the other survivors while confronting the lunatic. Squatting down to her eyeline, Myung-ho declared that he would be making new rules as he ascended to become this motel's new leader. Without the captain and other guards barking orders at him, he sees this as a chance to finally build his own personal paradise. The doctor heard his delusional ramblings and looked at him with utter disgust. Upon hearing the implication of Myung-ho's words, Dr. Han coldly asked what he had done to Tae-hoon. Hearing her call the captain's name triggered something inside the loser incel. He slapped her across the face, displeased that all she cares about is the Tae-hoon guy. She collapsed on the ground, and Sujin crawled up to make sure that she was all right. Myung-ho is finally at the peak of his raging, cringy crash out. He asked why everyone only cares about that bastard Tae-hoon. Captain this, captain that, everyone kept on relying on the guy who shot his own men and ran away. The lunatic just wanted to know why everyone follows Jang Tae-hoon and what makes that hateful man better than him. Now he's regretting not shooting that man like he did with that mutant who's invisible to zombies when he had the chance. Hearing the mention of her savior in that sentence woke Sujin up. She asked what this little incel boy did to Yi Hwan. He smirked and finally recognized her as the girl who was with that new squad. The lunatic teased Sujin that she would never ever see that weird mutant ever again. Spoiler alert, he could not be more wrong. Without his bike or the car, Kang Yi-hwan raw-dogged the journey following the scent of betrayal. Under the torrential rain, his bleeding abdomen continued to leak. Despite the fatal wound on his body, he was walking non-stop like a man possessed. His eyes shone with a fierce light, fixated on catching the man who dared to end his life. All he could see was red, a blood-soaked world that only he could perceive. While he was marching on an autopilot, a surge of tangled emotions was welling up inside his chest, but his mind felt unbelievably numb. He recalled meeting Park Gina and saving her from that convenience store. He could see the kind doctor and the residents of the motel. He replayed the scene of the captain and the reporter trapped inside on the 8th floor. That bastard Ha Myung-ho had the audacity to push him to such a precarious state, harming those that he had come to care about. Right now, Yuan's body is just flowing wherever it wants, and he cannot consciously take the reins. No, more importantly than that, he just feels so starved and ravenous that he's slowly losing grip of reality. Behind him, a battalion of zombies had already formed. Back in the motel, the lunatic had taken the whole community captive by force using the firearm in his hand. Myungho confessed that he did not hate the captain from the start. He actually tried to get along with the guy in his own way. He just reached the breaking point, and he felt like he was being pushed to the corner. It just came to a point when everything Taehoon did pissed him off. He's a hater for real. Dr. Han slowly got up and shattered the lunatic's delusions. She, of all people, knows how much Taehoon cared about and trusted this traitorous worm. They were the only men around each other's age in the camp. The captain always worried about Myungho as a brother, since they had no idea whether the Ha family was dead or alive. If anything, Taehoon had misplaced his care for this waste of space. Just when you thought he would realize his wrongdoings, the bastard smiled and admitted that he already knew all of that about the captain. But that care is precisely why he hated the man's guts with all his being. He felt as though Taehoon was acting like someone special in his life. If there's anything he hates, it's being looked down upon like he's a child to be taken care of. He hates that everyone just takes the guy with all their being, wholeheartedly calling him the captain. Dr. Han was speechless. She had never seen someone so messed up in the head. Sujin, on the other hand, was pissed off. Because of such a stupid reason, this damned bastard ruined the only chance humanity has left. When you boil it down and read between the lines, Ha Myungho is just a bug with some petty inferiority complex. A child who wants to be called captain. Sujin did not look at him with anger. He looked at him with the most pointed disdain. Such a pathetic man is not even worth the rage. Being looked at like worthless scum triggered all the right buttons to make him crash out even further. He grabbed Sujin by the collar and asked if she was really willing to sign her death wish right here and right now. He stuck the muzzle of the gun against her stomach and threatened to add another body to his increasing kill count. One more sacrifice won't be a big deal at this point. Still, the maniac is willing to let her live if she just starts acting like a bug for him. Such a ridiculous order made Sujin scoff with disgust. Even though she looks like a prim and proper lady, she is a thoroughbred daughter of an army colonel. She would never bow down to lowly trash like Ha Myungho. Besides, she had already died once. The fear of death had long since vanished from her mind. Sujin would rather die for the second time than submit to a coward, a bitch who would be nothing without a gun. Knowing that his threats won't have any effect on her, Myungho pushed the brave lady aside. He might as well give her that second death she was yelling about. He intends to cut down on mouths to feed anyway. After dealing with these girls, he plans on shooting those useless little kids who drain massive resources. Maybe then he'll feel a bit of peace. Before he could pull the trigger and open fire on the remaining survivors, he heard some footsteps limping closer and closer. Finally, Kang Yihwan finished his walkathon and arrived to get his vengeance. Seeing the bastard who tried to leave him a lifeless corpse, his bloody vision just got bloodier. Myungho was taken aback. He looked like he was seeing a ghost, which was understandable if you think about it. Sujin was also deeply shocked at this turn of events. She thought he was dead. Without wasting his breath with words, Yihwan marched forth as the bastard's trigger finger trembled in fear. He's starting to question his sanity. He was 100% certain that he dealt a kill shot earlier. But here's the victim, alive and upright, instead of a human. He looked more like an apex predator. Spurred into action by terror, the lunatic raised his automatic rifle and screamed unintelligibly, like he forgot how to string proper words together. This time, he could not get a single shot off with Dr. Han and Sujin jumping in to restrict both of his arms. This bug could not even shake them away when his life was on the line. When he realized that Yihwan was already up in his grill, he nearly pissed himself in fear. With fluid motion, the superhuman mutant delivered a straight that dislocated the lunatic's jaw, knocking multiple teeth loose in the process. The ladies let go in time, letting the mass-shooting bastard fly like a rag doll. They then secured the loaded gun out of reach. Ha Myungho's plan to take over the motel had been an utter failure. With a single punch, his already rotten face got even worse. Sujin was relieved but partly mortified by the young man's raw strength. When she lifted her head to look at him, he saw a man who looked like he was trying his hardest to hold himself back. With his last bit of consciousness, Yihwan asked Sujin to take everyone and get out of this floor. She was astounded for a second, but quickly recovered and did what he asked. With all the survivors evacuated up to the higher floors, only the mutant and the trash were left. Yihwan felt a strange calmness wash over him. He could feel his heart slowing down and relaxing. His mind slowly went blank. All the unnecessary noise was tuned out, and only one thought rose to the surface, repeating itself over and over again. He feels so fucking hungry to the point of near insanity. If you're wondering where the captain and the reporter were, well, they're still stuck in the hospital building. By their estimation, Yihwan should have arrived in the motel on foot by now. It only takes about an hour to reach the base camp, so he should have caught up. The two of them, however, were unfortunately forced to hole up inside. Who would have thought the infected people would swarm and surround the building in such a short time? They have nowhere to go and must avoid being detected by the nasty undead. Until now, Taehoon has been beating himself up over not being able to see how, when, and why Myungho became such a twisted individual. That guy was not exactly the social type. He never talked much, but he never caused any problems or picked any fights with others either. It was unthinkable that he would plan something so cruel all along. Reporter Kim simply countered that in this kind of hopeless situation where chaos prevails, people tend to let their hidden true nature loose. Taehyun is not at fault for not seeing just what kind of snake he was keeping in his home. Thankfully, that snake is now missing a few teeth and bleeding from head trauma. Like reporter Kim said, even people you trust with your life might be hiding a side of themselves that no one knows about. Outside Motel Moonlight, a developing avalanche of the undead is slowly inching closer. They must have been attracted by the gunshots from earlier. Their footsteps were concealed by the sound of rain. Inside, the disgusting worm had changed his domineering tone to that of submission, begging Yihwan to listen to what he had to say first. He admitted his wrongdoings and claimed that he never intended to do something so horrible to so many people. He just collapsed under stress. Would you buy that bullshit? Myung-ho blamed his deadly mental breakdown on the hellish situation they were all a part of. In a world where you never know if you'll be bitten or starved to death, it would be crazier if one could maintain their sanity. He kept on insisting that people like him can only take so much pressure. While he was trying to yelp his way out of trouble, he spotted a wooden stick nearby and immediately went for the grab. Yuan, on the other hand, looked like he was in an entirely different universe, mentally speaking. Seeing that he was distracted, the bug quickly looked for an opportunity to regain control of the situation. He deftly grabbed the wooden stick and snuck up to the distracted mutant. With all the strength he had left, he swung as hard as he could and hit Yihwan squarely on the temple, shaking his brain inside that cranium. Seeing that the first smack landed without a problem, he took it as an invitation to do some more. After smacking the absent-minded mutant enough, the worm quickly dove to retake the automatic rifle on the floor. Upon a successful retake, the lunatic swiftly ran for the doors. With his head bleeding, Yihwan seemed to have been brought back to life. Myung-ho had reached the outskirts of the motel territory by foot, the rain making it harder to run. This kid's cardio is absolutely horrible. He's just a few meters away from where he came from, and he's already winded. When he looked back, he saw Yihwan, who was already nearly caught up. The dude is moving like a horror movie villain. His eyes were fixated on the target. After that brief brain fart, he's finally locked in. Since he knows he can't possibly outrun a beast, Myung-ho turned around with his gun ready to fire. He yapped about resenting Yihwan for being a mutant who does not have to be afraid of getting bitten to death. He complained about how even though the world has been thrown into disorder, unfairness still exists, and he's one of the unlucky ones who never gets their turn to be on top. Talented people always excel, while normies like him always remain as nobodies until death. Today, he wants to change that injustice using the power of gunpowder. He opened fire on the slowly closing Yihwan, and the sound of gunshots pierced through the motel. The first bullet made the mutant falter a little, but he remained upright. Confident that he had this combat in the bag, the lunatic took a breather and offered to confess a little secret. He believes that since the previous world was full of inequality and unfairness, he prefers a world overrun by zombies by a mile. He really likes it. While living and hiding in this remote hotel, he thought he would become someone of note. But just like in the old world, people have done nothing but ignore his presence. One more thing he loves about this world is the simple fact that nobody expects anything from him anymore. In this messed up world, nobody will value or assess him. Nobody will care about his educational background, annual salary, or the kind of car he drives. He is free of society's judgment based on material gains. He doesn't care if the world has come to ruin because of zombies. Hell, this world has always been full of zombies conforming and buying into the rat race in a dog-eat-dog world. Nothing has changed. Things have just turned more literal. While the wannabe Joker villain was yapping non-stop, Yihwan was just watching on mute while his blood vision filter drew him closer to a scrumptious meal. The persistent thought that he can't get rid of is getting more intense by the second. He's so hungry he could tear through flesh like it's nothing. Myung-ho didn't know that no one was listening to his inane rants about society. Taking aim again, he claimed that he needs to get rid of the man who can cure zombies. He can't let a single guy ruin his little paradise, can he? Unbeknownst to this dumb fuck, the zombie battalion had already entered striking range upon hearing his indiscriminate firing from earlier. When he turned around, the rotting undead rushed through the downpour, eager to bite their way into satisfaction. Pathetic little man Myung-ho tried to defend himself using the gun, but the dipshit sucked at aiming and his fingers were too slow. The first zombie jumped into enjoying some nice breast meat. Once he was tackled to the ground, the rest of the battalion dogpiled in to get their fill. Yuan continued closing in, seemingly unaware of the bloody feast happening in front of him. Seemingly out of control, he unhinged his jaw to a terrifying degree before chowing down on some head meat. He was so entranced by the prospect of eating a decent human meal, and Miss Sujin saw it unfold. She watched from the motel's higher floors as her savior shared a pathetic meal with an undead battalion. Miss Choi Sujin was struck silent. Seeing her freeze while looking at the window, Dr. Han Seoyun asked what was happening outside. Sujin didn't know how to respond. After trying hard to compose herself, she assured the good doctor that everything would be all right now. She quietly closed the window and diverted Dr. Han's attention to helping the other survivors. Dr. Han felt a little sus, but she concurred. Time steadily passed, and the rain slowly petered out. The the sky finally cleared up and the morning sun shone. In contrast to the beautiful sunrise, the ground in front of the motel was caked with blood and gore. The zombies that have gathered in the vicinity also calmed down after having a decent overnight meal. Among them was Kang Yihwan, quietly contemplating what he had just done. He looked up at the sun, his mouth and clothes painted by Ha Myung-ho's blood and innards. Back in the death trap clinic, Captain Jang Tae-hun and journalist Kim Gi-do heard the stop of the downpour. All they could do was pray for the motel people's safety. The captain was taking this helpless feeling to heart. He had finally had enough of sitting around and doing nothing, trapped in this barren building. He blamed himself for not being able to see through Myung-ho's scheme. If he had just been a little more vigilant, none of this would have happened. To take responsibility for his inadequacy, he tried looking for a way out, even though they had neither a vehicle nor a single usable weapon. Going outside is practically suicide. Captain Tae-hun argued that they would just die the same if they sat on their asses, so they might as well try something out. He doesn't care about his well-being at all. He is motivated purely by the desire to save his people. Fortunately, there's no need for a suicide mission when Yihwan finally returned to fetch the two. The captain almost drew his unloaded rifle in shock. Yihwan had cleaned himself up pretty well and brought a car to escort Kim Gi-do and the captain. He apologized for coming a little bit late, but his journalist buddy was more concerned about Yihwan. They watched him get shot last night after all. Yihwan shrugged it off as a lucky miss. He must have lost consciousness due to shock, but there's no need to worry so much. Captain Tae-hun anxiously asked about the people in the motel and the mass murderer. Choosing not to share the more intimate details of what transpired last night, Yihwan just invited them to go back first. The journey back to the motel went smoothly, but they arrived just in time for a solemn ceremony. The survivors of last night's attack gathered outside the motel overlooking the mountains to build graves for those who had fallen victim to one man's pathetic delusions. Oh Kyung-soo was the driver at a kindergarten. He loved his kids more than anything in the world. Shin Hyung-sop was a home delivery man who helped sick old people with their needs. Both of them were truly kind-hearted people. That Myung-ho bastard really picked the kindest ones to pick off. Still blaming himself for what happened, Captain Tae-hun couldn't even look at his men's makeshift graves. Although they didn't spend much time with those who passed, they were all together in the darkest of times. That means something. These two will be remembered for many years to come. They will be celebrated for what they have shown to the world and their hearts. After the ceremony wrapped up, a heavy atmosphere filled the hotel as the day somberly passed. In the doctor's office, Dr. Han handed Yihwan a packet of documents. Written in this packet was verifiable proof that his blood can treat the infected people. In the future, they might run into a reputable medical institution. The document would be a sufficient explanation of his condition backed by some credibility. Still, they must tread carefully when it comes to speaking about the subject of Yihwan's condition. There are a lot of people with nefarious intentions out there. Yihwan doesn't really need the advice. He's seen it with his own eyes. The captain interrupted, verifying if he really didn't have any memories of coming back to the motel all by himself. All he knows for sure is that he came back all the way on foot. Other than that, his recollection was a blurry haze. He was in a dreamlike state the whole night. Dr. Han can't say what the cause of this short-term amnesia is for sure. One cause might just be temporary memory loss due to the shock of being shot at. By the end of the night, Myung-ho was attacked and eaten by the zombies that Yihwan had come with. He disappeared without a trace, seemingly devoured to the bone. Hearing the bloody description, Miss Sujin side-eyed Yihwan. Even now, a question lingers on everyone's minds. Just what caused Myung-ho to react so harshly? Last night, he looked like a completely different person. His ugly nature is finally in full view. Kim Gi-do asserted that Myung-ho's case wasn't really an outlier. In his days as a journalist, he saw a lot of people who knew nothing of goodwill. They were filled with evil thoughts and incapable of thinking about others. These days, you can say those types of people are even more dangerous than the infected. They often look like fellow survivors. Hearing this, the captain unconsciously gripped the strap of his gun. He recalled Yihwan saying that their group is heading to Yangyang. It doesn't matter what state highway they take. Every road is in a similar state to the expressway, completely blockaded. The only feasible way is to cross the mountain on foot. If they choose to go down that route, the captain warned Yihwan to be wary of people dressed in military uniforms. Journalist Kim was surprised that a soldier was telling them to avoid other soldiers. He thought that running into a military force would offer some kind of protection. That might be the case in organized bases, but small groups of soldiers must be avoided. Their military uniforms don't necessarily signify safety, but danger instead. Besides Captain Tae-hun, he knows of a few other deserters who abandoned their posts. Aside from him, there are soldiers from a neighboring platoon who also survived that bloody night. Due to a certain incident, they escaped along a different path. If Yuan's gang ever happens to encounter those guys, they will pose a very serious threat. The captain's worries seemed overdramatic, given that the incident must have happened weeks ago by now. Sure, Tae-hun hopes that he's just being too paranoid. Still, he can't help but worry. That night, those bastards specifically headed towards Yangyang. After being forced to kill his infected men, Captain Tae-hun ran away with his gear, not daring to look back. He kept on telling himself to keep it together. That was the singular thought running through his mind. Taehoon is headed for the Tactical Command Center, debating whether to report what just happened. It was then that he came across the neighboring platoon holding a civilian at gunpoint. They looked like they were having the time of their lives. Taehoon walked closer and asked what the 3rd platoon was doing. 3rd platoon's de facto leader was surprised to see the exasperated captain of the 2nd platoon alive. Being a goody two-shoes that he is, Taehoon demanded answers for this alarming scene. The foot soldiers didn't know how to answer. With his adrenaline running high from killing his own troops, Captain Taehoon exploded in frustrated questioning. To shut his loudmouth up, one of the soldiers, Jo Minjin, raised his gun against the captain's temple. At this point, ranks don't matter anymore. No one is in charge and everything is in chaos. Taehoon's anger rose to another level. The company has been nearly wiped out, and these assholes are holding up a civilian at gunpoint. This is simply not something that a sane person would do. Jo Minjun could say the same about killing one's own men and being the sole survivor of a whole platoon. Taehoon was mocked by that answer. In a sense, he is a mass murderer and a deserter. Jo Minjun's words stung. He is not in a position to act nobly in this situation. After all, they are just stealing a civilian's car to escape this wooded hellhole. Their sins cannot possibly compare to a man who slaughtered his own comrades. While they were having a civilized conversation with guns, a horde of zombies stumbled out of the woods. Upon closer look, every undead in this horde was wearing military uniforms. Based on their patches, they should belong to the Tactical Command Unit. That means the battalion HQ had already fallen. Jo Minjun took advantage of the captain's momentary distraction and banged him with the rifle's butt. Taehoon was knocked down and out. Minjun had already wasted enough time, so he ordered his lackeys to get in the car. The obedient ones quickly followed the corporal's orders, but the rookie was lagging behind. Rook was wondering what would happen to the civilian they stole the car from if they ran away. Minjun laughed and walked closer to the perturbed rookie. So as not to waste any more words, he shot the civilian right in the noggin. Captain Taehoon, still reeling from the pain of the sneak attack, helplessly watched. This is the corporal's message for those who don't know how to follow orders. After killing an innocent man, Minjun's carefree smile returned, and he asked the rookie to get in the car for the final time. Seeing the headshot corpse on the ground, he obliged. One of the footmen asked the corporal if they were really leaving the captain behind. Minjun casually explained that Taehoon was left alive on purpose. This way, the noble captain can buy them time while the zombies get a hefty dinner. With that, the 3rd platoon assholes drove away. A few moments later, Taehoon had recovered just enough to sit up straight. By that time, the horde of soldier zombies was just a few meters away. Terrified, he clutched his weapon close to his chest. This was a replay of what he had to do with his own platoon. Captain Taehoon was mortified. Desperate to survive, he opened fire once more. That was the whole story of that night. He can't say for sure if the 2nd platoon assholes really did go to Yangyang, but it is highly likely that they did. Since that day, most major roads have been rendered useless. It would not have been easy to get far with a 4-wheel vehicle. Since that's the case, they likely kept heading toward Yangyang as planned. Yuan thanked the captain for the warning. Even so, they can't afford to delay any longer. He wants to find his family as soon as possible before it is too late. Back in the motel, Captain Taehoon is posted up alone on guard duty on the outer wall. He was just out there admiring the night sky when the good doctor popped out. It was a hard day today, and she wanted him to get some well-deserved rest. Going back inside would be useless, as he can't sleep anyway. The other survivors are doing a lot better. The children are still a bit anxious, but things have calmed down to a manageable degree overall. Seeing his expression, Dr. Han immediately understood what's eating the captain up inside. She held his hand and told him to stop blaming himself for the actions of a lunatic. There is always another face that people keep hidden. It's not something you can really see. Rather than wallowing in painful memories, it's better to remember the sincere sides of people, even after death. The doctor's words gave the captain some much-needed comfort. Bro got the best girl in the apocalypse. Watching them from afar, Yihwan was thrown into the deep end of contemplation. The truth is, he did not lose his memories from last night. He can still taste Myungho's blood in his mouth. The doctor mentioned the other face that people keep hidden. How long can he hide his? By morning, the car is completely stocked with boxed supplies and plenty of water to drink. Yihwan's squad was about to head out, and Captain Taehoon wanted them to take one of the firearms for safety reasons just in case, but Yihwan declined. He reasoned that they're heading to Yangyang not to fight. It's better to have weapons where there are people to protect. The captain relented and handed him a map with the best route to Yangyang marked. It might not be the most accurate, but it should still help. Taehoon reflected on the gang's short stay. They helped with this little encampment so much, and he feels bad for not returning the favor. All he could offer was a firm handshake, a prayer, and a good luck wish. Yihwan politely returned the kind words. Dr. Han also packed a comprehensive medical kit for the gang. She really is the goat. Yuan took a moment to look at the motel for one last time and saw one of the kids sending them off with an enthusiastic smile. It reminded him of his sister. This only deepened his desire to get to their destination as soon as possible. He returned the wave and smiled, then turned to the captain, the doctor, and the other survivors who came to send them off. Kang Yihuan sincerely thanked the little community of survivors for housing them safely in a short time. Finally, the motel arc has concluded. It's time to embark on a new chapter. Dr. Han asked if the captain was really fine with staying in this place. If he had gone with those three, he might have gotten a chance to return to the military and right his wrongs. He assured Han Seoyun that he's not going anywhere far away from her. Not when he finally found his home. While the new couple engage in some intense hand-holding action, Yuan's gang has made some progress in their journey. He led with his cool-ass bike, and the other two drove from behind while making sure that they stayed the course that the captain drew up. When the sun finally set, they picked an abandoned house to camp in. After a hearty meal, they slept soundly while rotating for watch duty. As soon as the sun rose, they immediately hit the road once more. It was smooth sailing until they came across the first roadblock, a dark and long tunnel filled with countless unknown variables. Once they're through this final stretch, they'll finally enter Yangyang. Thanks to Taehun's map, they have come so far without much trouble. But this tunnel, as freaky as it looks, is the only available path. Without a choice, Yihuan made the call to just wing it. As usual, he will take the lead while the car steadily follows from behind. They steeled their resolve and entered the dark and unknown passageway. Unbeknownst to the gang, something has been hiding in one of the seemingly abandoned trucks strewn around the entrance. The first few minutes of the tunnel ride went without a hitch. Yihuan is inching closer and closer to reuniting with his family. Then, he saw something that made him abruptly hit the brakes up ahead. The path forward was blocked by two huge public buses. From one of the buses, a man wearing a military uniform popped out with a cigarette in his mouth and an expectant mood. It was Corporal Joe Min-jun, the asshole from 2nd Platoon, and the man Taehun warned the gang about. He was just glad to finally catch some promising loot. He kept running into worthless nobodies in this god-forsaken tunnel. Perhaps the heavens haven't forgotten him yet. Based on the deliberate position of the buses, it looks like this bastard blocked the tunnel on purpose. Yihuan tried to play it cool at first and calmly asked for his group to be allowed to pass through. Corporal Joe looked at him like he was a dumbass. Having a bit of fun, he asked Yihuan to pass through if he could. Then came the truck barreling through from behind. The driver slammed the brakes and let the massive vehicle skid perfectly to block the way back to the tunnel's entrance. In the driver's seat was the foot soldier who spotted them right when they decided to risk going into the unknown. He looked quite pleased with himself. Seeing that the trio was still acting like clueless fucks, the corporal thought that this group must have had it pretty easy until now. He had to spell out that from now on, they are nothing but captives. To hammer in the point, the rest of the foot soldiers popped out of the bus windows with their guns locked and loaded. It was an effective and efficient trap that took every possibility into account. With the threat of firearms, even a dumbass should understand what's going on. Yihuan's gang was forced to surrender and was taken into an abandoned warehouse nearby. They must regret not taking Taehun's gun now. They were tied up and stashed in a dank room. They were treated like garbage and were in no position to make demands. Before going, one of the foot soldiers promised Miss Sujin that she'd be treated differently. She has a decent face and there's no need to mess it up. Tomorrow she'll be shown what rough handling really means. Once the metal door was locked, Kim Gi-doo went off on the crooked soldiers. He bragged that if the guns were out of the equation, those bastards would be no match for his boy Yihuan. The insignia on those bastards' uniforms matched the insignia from the same 13th Division as Taehun. That basically confirms the worst-case scenario. By the looks of it, they will be left alone for tonight at the very least. If they try hard enough, the three should be able to formulate an escape plan. The real problem is that the car and motorcycle were confiscated. If they escape on foot, they won't last long without supplies. Miss Sujin is worried that the soldiers might know about Yuan's condition. On the way in, she saw a working radio. These goons might have heard PD Sun's broadcast. Either way, they need to keep their mouths shut about that topic. There's no telling what those bastards might do if they find out about Yihuan's immunity. Kim Gi-doo's warning to the rest of the group was heard by the other prisoners stuck inside the dank room. They openly discussed privileged information without even checking the surroundings. The prisoner frankly asked if the young man really is invisible to zombies. Kim Gi-doo realized his mistake and didn't dare to utter another word. Mr. Prisoner introduced himself as Kim Young-hoon. Like the trio, he also got captured by those crooked soldiers about 5 days ago. Those assholes have practically changed their jobs to human hunters. Still, the soldiers had a reason to keep Mr. Kim Young-hoon alive. You see, he was a doctor. Those pricks thought it would be useful to have a living medkit locked up in their prison. They just drag Dr. Kim out whenever they need something and keep him tied up and locked away the rest of the time. Kim Gi-doo had seen prisoner of war camps, and the conditions in this room are up there. Going back to the topic, Dr. Kim asked if there really is someone among the group who doesn't get bitten by zombies. The gang didn't dare to leak any more than they already did. The imprisoned doctor assured them that there's no need to worry about information getting out. He simply wanted to confirm something. Dr. Kim Young-hoon dropped a bombshell and confessed that he was part of a team that might have started this whole thing. If someone is immune to this sickly disease, they might have had a direct hand in making it happen. Outside the prison room, the fuck-ass soldiers had just finished unloading and taking inventory of today's harvest. They thought they would just find a few packs of ramen, but they hit the motherload of supplies instead. This is a full stockpile that should last them at least a week. In a room full of celebration, one rookie was feeling bad for his foul actions. The dictatorial corporal saw this and rattled the rookie. He asked if the weak little shit is feeling guilty again. If that's the case, there is an easy solution to make a man out of a weak-willed coward. They could let him have the first go at the chick they just locked up earlier. Jo Min-jun offered the disgusting proposition as if it were a golden opportunity. He thinks if the rookie gets a taste, he might finally grow out of that weak little heart of his. The foot soldiers agreed with the plan and urged the rookie to accept and be grateful. As for the two useless guys that came with the girl, they can be fed to that thing the soldier boys keep locked up in a different dank room. It's about time they gave that flesh-loving zombie woman pet something to eat. Back in the stinky dungeon, the gang could not believe what they just heard. Dr. Kim basically confessed to being one of the people responsible for this apocalyptic scenario, and the one who indirectly made Yihwan immune. He immediately clarified that he was once part of the clandestine project at one point, but had cut ties with the lunatic mastermind a long time ago. Kim Gi-doo's journalistic instinct kicked in and pressed for more clarification about this alleged secret project. If Dr. Kim had to describe it in one sentence, it would be a madman's twisted experiment born from pure insanity. The project was led by Dr. Shin, a brilliant pathologist and a respected and talented physician. He was once admired by his peers. Dr. Kim took it as an honor to be part of the team. As time went on, he found the horrific truth. The project's real goal was the creation of a new step for humanity, a life form free from all disease, with enhanced abilities pushed to the absolute limits. In short, they were working on a plan to elevate the human body to the level of a god. The way the imprisoned doctor put it sounded like some kind of cult. However, Kim Young-hoon asserted that it was a scientifically grounded medical undertaking. Though, to be fair, he can't really blame everyone for thinking that it was a cultish endeavor. In fact, that was the reason why more and more people left the project as time went on. Dr. Shin had completely lost it. They started conducting experiments on actual human beings. They would inject newly engineered viruses into patients on the brink of death and monitor whether they would come back to life. The ethical and moral violations alone were deplorable. If that virus ever leaked, the consequences would be catastrophic, and that's precisely what happened. It is possible that the perfect godlike product the project aimed to create is none other than Kang Yihwan. Back outside, Corporal Jo Min-jun is fiddling with the medical kit that the gang received. They even got some sort of medical cooler in the mix. It's a huge haul. When he opened the cooler, he found vials of blood. Inside the prison, the gang is still having a hard time absorbing everything they just heard. Dr. Kim can't say for sure, but the most likely explanation for this pandemonium is a virus leak from the lab where he used to work. Everything is playing out just like the scenario predicted by former members who warned the crazy Dr. Shin about the project's risks. If all that is true, then how did Yihwan get implicated? In response, Dr. Kim asked if he had ever been to the Joan Hospital in Incheon. Hearing the name of the hospital, which was stuck in the early days of the outbreak, sent a chill down Yihwan's spine. He was there to do his job before the world went to shit. It may look like a normal medical facility from the outside, but it was actually the main base of operations for the project. If Yihwan had ever made contact with that place, the leaked virus must have caused a mutation in him. Knowing that one of the people responsible for his plight was in front of him, Yihwan angrily asked Dr. Kim if he was trying to take back a lost lab rat. Even his buddy Gi-doo was freaked out by the killing intent he just unleashed. Just thinking of all the people that have died because of some fucked up experiment made him sick to his stomach. Countless families have been torn apart, lives were destroyed, and everything was lost. Those who barely survived ended up as monsters hunting others. How can you stay calm in front of one of the people who created hell on earth? Yihwan's rage exploded, manifesting into strength that broke his restraints. He can't stay put when some asshole who once played with human lives is holding out his hand and asking for cooperation. Dr. Kim just bowed and admitted his wrongdoings. He has no excuses. He bears responsibility for this disaster of biblical proportions. But the reason he wanted to confirm Yihwan's immunity was for the sake of everyone who was still alive and fighting for survival. He wants to know the reason why Yihwan ended up immune, the special sauce in his DNA. It is entirely possible that Kang Yihwan could be the last hope left in this bleak world. All Gi-doo heard was an implication that, for the greater good, his friend should willingly become a lab rat again. Dr. Kim cleared up that he just wanted Yihwan to provide antibodies to study and possibly develop and mass-produce a cure. If they can persuade their captors the right way, they can get out of this place and help save the world. Yihwan fell silent for a moment. Then he asked what if his antibodies actually make things worse for everyone. He was clearly concerned about turning people into something like him. The confrontation was interrupted by the prison door opening. The rookie came in with his gun raised. He saw that one of the prisoners had managed to get rid of the restraints. If the other seniors had found out, things would have gone south real fast. But Rook assured them that they don't have to be on guard now. He didn't come here to hurt anyone. His superiors ordered him to do some really fucked up stuff, but he doesn't want to do that. The truth is, he came here to enlist everyone's help. He's going to set everyone free, including himself. Kim Gi-doo doesn't buy it for a second. He can't exactly trust one of their captors. Rook explained that he was just following orders, afraid of what might happen to him if he didn't. He is basically a prisoner under his seniors, albeit without the restraints. Miss Sujin refused to let her guard down. But Dr. Kim vouched for the young rookie. He's been here for 5 days, and he knows that the rookie is harmless. He's never mistreated prisoners or acted violently. They all just want to escape this cursed place once and for all. Still, Kim Gi-doo can't put his life in the hands of the enemy. For all they know, this is just some fucked up trap. But whether he likes it or not, they don't have a choice but to decide. Tomorrow morning at daybreak, the men captured today are set to be executed. Now it's starting to sound like they really are prisoners of war. Dr. Kim asked Hangyul, the rookie, if that execution would involve her. Rookie regrettably elaborated that at dawn, the boys would be thrown to the zombies tied behind the building. To Dr. Kim's infected wife, this operation of the unruly platoon has been going on for a while now. Once they caught a businessman and yanked him around ceaselessly before they decided that it was killing time. Jo Min-jun outrightly confessed that he was doing all this crap just because he's bored out of his mind. There is nothing out here in the middle of the mountains, and he's dying of boredom. Then, something fun rolled in, and he couldn't resist having a little bit of cheeky fun. Unlike the doctor they have in their prison room, the businessman is of no use to the group, so he might as well be zombie food. At that time, Hangyul the rookie tried to speak up about how inhumane this practice was. The corporal was offended that one of his underlings questioned his newfound hobby. Still, Hangyul decided to double down. Taking things for survival is one thing, but killing someone for fun is a line that shouldn't be crossed. If they do this, they are no different from those brainless monsters scampering around the land. The corporal spat out and cursed the rookie's soft heart. As a responsible superior, he wanted to impart a lesson to the youngest of the platoon. He asserted that to survive in a world full of monsters, you have to become an even worse beast. If one can act worse than a zombie, then one won't be afraid of those brainless infected anymore. While holding the rookie down, Jo Min-jun ordered his other lackeys to toss the unlucky businessman to the deep end. They did as they were told, and the chained-up zombie swiftly pounced on the poor sap. He screamed and thrashed, desperate to run away to no avail. After hearing the retelling of what those demons are capable of doing from Hangyul, the prisoners were visibly shaken. Those menaces dressed in military uniforms are crazier than they thought. The rookie cannot stand being under the control of those lunatics. He doesn't want to be dragged along anymore. He's already done so much bad shit against his will. Dr. Kim corroborated the story. As far as he knows, the bastards are keeping his infected wife chained up. They treat her as a disposal system for captured prisoners. Jo Min-jun runs this place as if it were his personal playhouse of horrors. Yuan then asked Hangyul what they could do. Well, the area is completely surrounded by mountains. Escaping on foot is borderline impossible. They're going to need the car. Thankfully, his demonic superiors are a bunch of slobs who just tossed aside the car keys in the common room. Hangyul can retrieve them secretly. Tomorrow morning, when feeding time comes, he will make his move and take his superiors down. It's a reckless and straightforward plan. It's hard to say if he can even take down 3 armed soldiers on his own. But the rookie insisted that he only needed to subdue one, the head of the snake, Corporal Jo Min-jun. If he's taken out of the picture, the rest will fall in line. Yuan wanted to know why the rookie is going this far. He could easily escape on his own. Unlike them, nothing is tying him down to this place after all. His answer was simple and concise. He wants to do the right thing for once in his life. Miss Sujin proposed that they should just sneak out right away while the others were asleep. The rookie already thought of that, but the sound of the car engine starting would draw too much attention. It's too risky. While they were discussing escape plans, the devil himself, the corporal, walked in. He was disappointed to see that the rookie hadn't started with the girl yet. Then, he left the door open and asked the 3 freshly caught prisoners to follow him somewhere. Of course, the entire group hesitated to follow the literal devil to wherever he was trying to lead them. Then, the corporal noticed that one of the prisoners had been freed from the secured ties. Instead of crashing out, he found it convenient and assumed that the rookie was the one who cut the restraints. Jo Min-jun asked the rook to do the same for everybody else. It would be easier for them to move that way. After walking to the main warehouse, the corporal was oddly pleasant sounding. He offered the gang some proper beds to rest on and was welcoming overall. Miss Sujin was the first one to speak up and ask what the hell was happening. The corporal insisted that he's not such a bad guy. He was simply being cautious of strangers earlier. Before elaborating on his change of heart, Min-jun asked the rookie to leave first. Hangyul tried to stick around, but the corporal insisted that he leave. The rookie had no other choice but to obey, so as not to arouse suspicion. Back to the topic at hand, the corporal had completely turned casual and carefree in tone. Kim Gi-doo and everyone else could see through the bullshit, so he asked the devil to get to the point. With no one left to watch this charade, he should just spill the real purpose of this change. The corporal appreciated how perceptive the journalist was. Getting straight down to business, Corporal Jo Minjin knows about the zombie immunity. Back in the hotel, the mommy zombie that Kang Yi-hwan cured is getting a lot better. She's back to eating normal food now, thanks to Dr. Han's extensive care. Of course, the humble physician attributed all the credit to Yi-hwan and his magic blood. Former mommy zombie regrets not being able to see her savior off properly. All she could do now was hope for their safety. By the end of the consultation, her daughter barged into the infirmary with a drawing she's incredibly proud of. The former mommy zombie is just mommy now. As soon as the last patient left, Captain Taehyun came in to check on the good doc. He could see that something was bothering her more than usual today. Well, she's worried about Yi-hwan's gang and their journey to Yangyang. She's starting to think that the referral letter she prepared might end up in the wrong hands and do more harm than good. The captain assured her that even if that happens, Yi-hwan can take care of everyone. In his eyes, Dr. Han fulfilled her duty as a doctor, and that letter will be a massive help. Unbeknownst to them, her worst thoughts just happened. Corporal Jo Minjun was rummaging through his loot and found some files. It was full of complicated terms beyond his reading comprehension, so he ignored it at first. But then he saw something that piqued his interest. He skimmed through the details of how one of these three is practically invisible to zombies. Not only that, but the person's blood is also a valuable cure that can turn an infection back to normal. It basically describes the world's savior. The corporal can't just leave someone that important tied up in a dank storage room. Now it makes sense why his attitude made a 180-degree turn. As for his demand, it's nothing too grand, really. If someone is bound to be humanity's savior, he would love to take good care of them and share in some of the benefits in the future. If the world's liberator shows up, they'll surely be worshipped like a god. There's plenty of glory to be had, and the corporal wants to enjoy a portion of that. His greedy ass can't even hide the underlying threat behind those words. It's either cooperation or death. Kang Yi-hwan then asked one question. Why did the devil order his subordinate to leave before sharing the information he had found out? Jo Minjun didn't bother hiding his move. It's obvious after all. There is no need to split the bountiful rewards with extra mouths. The fewer mouths to feed, the bigger the spoils. Before he could continue running his rotten mouth, Yi-hwan dismissed his nonsense. This fool practically confessed that he's just pretending to treat all three prisoners well. The moment he ascertains which one is immune to the undead, it's bye-bye for the other two. The corporal sneered. He was way too careless with his words. This dude treats human lives like nothing. How can anyone join hands with someone so inhumane and traitorous? Surprisingly, Jo Minjun didn't lash out. He has a lot of time to figure out what to do next after all. Perhaps they could talk a bit more tomorrow. But for now, his former prisoners turned guests must get some rest. The devil might have all the time in the world to break his captives, but Kang Yi-hwan doesn't have that luxury. His family must be out there, and he must escape this place by all means. After the demon left, the gang was given some cup noodles to alleviate their hunger. They are in an arguably worse position than when they were just treated as normal prisoners. Who would have thought that the letter Dr. Han wrote would put them in this precarious situation? At this point, the only way out might be through the rookie's help. They have to roll the dice and hope that the kid has pure intentions. Kim Gi-doo is skeptical. You can't blame him for having a hard time trusting others. Nevertheless, they have to find some kind of opening somehow. Speaking of that, the rookie knocked on the door to check on the gang. Private Seo Hungyul explained that his turn for guard duty has come, so he's free to talk from outside. Knowing that the door is being guarded by rotating shifts only proved that the dastardly corporal is watching. The rookie wanted to come in and talk face to face, but the door was locked, and the corporal had the only key. First of all, Hangyul wanted to apologize for how everything is panning out. He swore on his mama that he's not trying to deceive. Yi-hwan seemed to trust the young man's words a little, and asked if he had heard anything else by chance. Well, the corporal announced that they are leaving this warehouse for good tomorrow. The seniors are already packing and loading up everything useful. It sounds like Corporal Joe is pumped to head to Seoul. Kim Gi-doo reckoned that the dumbass corporal must be planning to sell the immunity out to the government or the military, and the first place they could think of was the capital city. Rook started yapping dramatically about how scary the corporal was, how he manipulates and then discards others without a second thought. Whatever that devil said, Hangyul urged the gang not to believe a word. Well, Kang Yi-hwan doesn't plan to do so in the first place. The bastard wants something only he can provide, so they have all the negotiating power. When morning came, the corporal immediately checked on his unwilling guests and was met with conditions for cooperation. Now he regrets feeding the fish he already caught. He showed a little fake kindness, and his prisoners think they're in charge or something. He tried reverting to threats, but Yi-hwan didn't budge. Yi-hwan stoically asked if the fool even knew how the blood vial in the cooler works. All the dumbass did was read a piece of paper. There are no procedures or precautions written there. Yi-hwan warned the demon to think carefully instead of swinging his gun around. Jo Min-jun considered Yi-hwan's words for a moment. Kim Gi-doo was worried that using usage and precautions as bargaining chips could end up biting them in the ass. Yi-hwan is practically bluffing through his teeth. Still, if the corporal bites, that's all that matters. Thankfully, the ball demon did bite. He recognized that carelessness might prove to be a problem, so he openly asked about these conditions that Yuan had devised. Firstly, under any circumstances, the corporal must ensure the safety of all 3 people in the group. With a slimy smile, Joe Minjin agreed. Secondly, if there is a plan to move anywhere to contact the government or military, Yuan will pick the destination. The corporal argued that the natural destination spot for that is the capital Seoul. Yuan asserted that there is simply nothing left in Seoul. It has turned into a metropolis of blood and chaos. The government and military were so overwhelmed that they pulled out long ago. Seoul is the last place you would want to visit these days. Unless you want to live your apocalyptic life on hard mode, it's better to go elsewhere. Unlike these criminal deserters who've been cooped up in the mountains, Yuan's gang has access to real information, and they have the best leads. The explanation made sense, so the corporal conceded. They're all in this together now. As for the third condition, Yuan wants to use one of the blood vials on the infected person locked up in the nasty outhouse. The corporal asked the punk why he was trying to cure a zombie. He refused to answer. No matter the reason, this third condition is not a big ask at all. More than that, this is a chance to verify the healing properties of the blood. Minjin admitted that he is trying to come up with a method to run a test for verification. Feeling open to every caveat, he accepted Yuan's terms and conditions. It worked. The lead is back to the gang, but the corporal cannot be trusted to live up to his promises. Thankfully, they have the rookie on standby as insurance. Without wasting any more time, the soldiers and the prisoners arrived at the testing site. Dr. Kim's infected wife snarled and growled as soon as she saw some live meat. Naturally, Yuan volunteered to administer the blood vial. The foot soldiers followed their orders to come to the outhouse, but they were confused as to why. The corporal asserted that they should just shut their mouths and watch. They're about to see something historic, a significant page in human history. Kang Yuan slowly and fearlessly approached the zombie while it was tweaking out. When he was just a few feet away, the corporal stopped him. There's no need to rush. Not all the audience members have arrived yet. It was then that Dr. Kim Young-hoon was dragged out of his enclosure to watch. The corporal is getting a kick out of watching a husband seeing his wife suffer. Joe Minjun asserted that he's going out of his way to orchestrate a touching reunion that warrants a thank you at the very least. This cruel stunt enraged Yuan, but he couldn't show his claws yet. He glanced at the rookie, and he looked determined while giving the subtle nod to signal a go for the plan. Yuan gripped the blood vial tighter and took another step closer to the undead. The foot soldiers and even the rookie were surprised to see the fresh catch approach a zombie unarmed. As far as Hangyul knows, this certainly wasn't part of the escape plan they devised. Nevertheless, Yuan had walked enough to be inches apart from the zombie's bloody maw. He gently stabilized Mrs. Kim with a light pat, and he wasn't ripped apart on the spot. Those who had no idea what was going on were slack-jawed. Yuan silently recognized the woman's suffering and promised that she would be able to wake up from this living nightmare soon. He carefully fed her the blood in the vial, careful to give her every drop. Dr. Kim watched and prayed while the corporal looked forward to getting the verification he needed. Immediately, the undead reacted to the blood she had just ingested. Her aggression vanished completely. A second later, her body limped and fell to the floor. Ignoring the armed guards, Dr. Kim ran to the blood-soaked love of his life. He desperately called on her name, Hyewon. Dr. Kim held his breath as he saw some signs of movement. She weakly opened her mouth and hoarsely asked for water. Hearing his infected wife say a coherent word hit the doctor with whiplash. He turned to the stunned soldiers and asked for water for his dear wife, who was now showing signs of dehydration. The foot soldiers were frozen right where they were standing. The same can be said for Joe Minjin. It was simply unbelievable to see the cure in action. Regaining his composure, the corporal ordered his 2 subordinates to follow the doctor's instructions and get some water. The foot soldiers grumbled to themselves, but followed the boss's commands. As soon as they turned their back, Minjun smiled nefariously. Yuan was the only one who caught pure evil taking over the corporal. The demon raised his automatic rifle and opened fire on his 2 subordinates, filling them with bullet holes. Everyone instinctively ducked away from the brutal sound of gunfire. The rookie lost strength in his knees and fell. His trigger finger shivered in terror and shock. Then, he heard the corporal ask if he was spooked by the little massacre. Joe Minjun assured his youngest subordinate that he would be spared from such a bloody fate. Of course, he'll only be spared if he keeps on following orders like a good spineless boy. It's one thing to hear Minjun mention killing his underlings, but seeing him do it without batting an eye was extremely disturbing. Kang Yuan could not just sit still and confronted the bastard for being such a heartless bitch. As always, Minjun insisted that he's just thinning the herd to reduce the number of mouths to feed. They're about to embark on a long road trip to capitalize on the cure. They have to save up on supplies. He then assured the gang that he would keep his promise to keep the 3 safe. Yuan almost threw hands right then and there, but that's when the rookie finally grew some balls, stood up, and put the muzzle of his gun against the back of the demon's head. Private SEO Hangyul looked like he was ready to pull the trigger any second now. He would rather get eaten by zombies than take any more orders from the literal devil. Instead of fearing for his life, the corporal took the threat as an amusing challenge. At first, he tried to pull the seniority card and tried to rattle the rookie. Then, he reiterated his promise to always keep his precious youngest subordinate safe. If he wants to move with Yihwan's gang, trust will be important from now on. That's why he can't join the gang by himself. He would like to have at least one person to watch his back, and he chose the rookie for that role. He asked Hangyol if their days together didn't result in some sort of mutual trust at all. Of course it didn't. From the jump, Hangyol knows that the corporal only keeps disposable people alive around him as long as they have some use. Jo Minjun doesn't deserve respect. He is a selfish bastard who uses and kills without a second thought, a crazy psychopathic bastard worse than the undead. When everything else failed, the corporal brought up the rookie's dead parents, threatening to arrange another reunion. It was a successful rage bait that led to Hangyol knocking the corporal using the butt of his gun. He continued to stomp on the unconscious monster for daring to insult his parents. Rook would have continued stomping until the kill, but Yihwan intervened. This dude insisted that they don't have to become a monster like the corporal. They should just take care of the doctor's wife first. As for the unconscious corporal, they just threw him inside the warehouse without tying him up or putting a bullet between his eyes. It was a really smart move. For plot and drama reasons, they just left the biggest villain unattended. Of course, the bastard would twitch and wake up right after they turned their backs. At least they took all the guns and loaded them into the car. Regarding Mrs. Kim, her dehydration had been slightly alleviated. Her husband is looking after her, so she should be fine. The group gained a few more people. Thankfully, they have more than one car now. With the supplies already packed the night before, they should be able to leave right away. Of course, Yihwan is now blaming himself for the death of those scumbag soldiers. Miss Sujin is the only one who speaks with some sense right now. She tried to get it through his thick head that he shouldn't carry the weight of every death that happens around them. Kim Gi-doo understands his buddy, but this is one of those cases where being too kind is a problem in and of itself. Anyway, that kindness problem just doubled as they got another goody two-shoes in the group in Private Seo Hangyol. Kim Gi-doo approached the rookie and comforted him about the death of comrades, even though those comrades were complete trash. He just wants to get out of this accursed warehouse as soon as possible. Kim Gi-doo formally invited the rookie to join the crew, and he gratefully accepted. While they were happily chatting away, the most obvious thing happened. Poor rookie got shot in the shoulder. He dropped to the ground, and the sound of a gunshot attracted everyone's attention. They confiscated the rifles but didn't bother to do at least a body search on the unhinged corporal. He had a whole revolver stashed in God knows where the whole time. He rarely uses handguns, so he only grazed the rookie who betrayed him. He was aiming for the head and missed. Seeing the gun in the demon's hand, Yihwan recognized it as the revolver from their car. The corporal must have lifted it the night they got caught. Honestly, the gang was so stupid, and Jo Minjin was planning to just stay down until they left. But he had the other blood vial in his pocket, so he said fuck it and tried something reckless. Yep, the devil drank Yihwan's magic blood. He thought that it would give him the same immunity. If he can't escort humanity's savior, he could have just played it safe and waited for the soft-hearted bitches to leave and enjoy his ascension. But then he got hungry. He just couldn't hold back. His soulless eyes now contained something more ravenous and greedier. It was something that only Yihwan could recognize. In Corporal Jo Minjun's bloodstream, a drastic change is starting to take place. Now, Kang Yihwan must face the consequences of being a stupid main character and hold off the superpowered villain while the others retreat. He advised his comrades to drive as fast and as far as possible to somewhere he won't be able to follow. Kim Gi-doo assisted the rookie out of the way, but he refused to leave and get on the wheels without Yihwan. Miss Sujin, on the other hand, could understand why Yihwan was telling them to get the hell out and never look back. She saw how he dug into another man's flesh like a brainless undead not long ago. For now, she's in the camp listening to and doing what Yihwan said. Their priority is getting Hangyol to Dr. Kim right away. Before they could get far, Jo Minjun raised his six-shooter on their retreating backs. Fortunately, Yihwan reacted fast enough to land a haymaker that knocked the gun out of his hand. Knowing that the demon was starting to transform, he stopped holding back his strength. The corporal maliciously announced his hunger. Well, so is Kang Yuan. The doctor remained on standby near the cars after hearing the gunshots. As soon as he saw the three limping down with the wounded Hangyol, he went to emergency triage mode. He asked for the medical kit, and Kim Gi-doo swiftly dug through the supplies. He's still clueless as to what his buddy is trying to do by going one-on-one with the devil. The corporal easily got up after receiving quite a punch to the jaw. He even had the time to pull out a cigarette, light one up, and aura farm in the middle of a fight. Slowly but surely, the effects of the blood vial are spreading in his system. Now, he can't be satisfied with offing people with a gun. It's simply way too fast, easy, and no fun at all. After one puff, he tossed a perfectly good cig out of the way, and it landed near some loose oil barrels for dramatic effect. Now he's ready to go blow for blow with the savior, excited to tear him limb from limb for maximum satisfaction. While he was doing his comically evil monologue, Yihwan was loading up another straightforward strike. In response, Jo Minjun countered with a mirrored attack and both narrowly missed. He followed it up with a quick kick to the stomach, sending Yihwan sliding backwards. They took a second to stare each other down, thinking they looked tough. The SIG finally touched the loose oil on the floor and lit up the battlefield for maximum aura. To get in the fiery spirit of the field, the corporal took his camo uniform off. An idea struck him. Since they're the only two people in this world immune to zombies, they are practically the same kin. If the word got out, the world would praise them and even worship them. They could be gods. On second thought, he settled that a savior would be worth more when there is only one, not two. That idea motivated the demon to go harder and try to murder his competition. His punches were making Yuan crack the floor through sheer force, like they're in a different comic. Mr. Moral MC retaliated and sent him flying into the fire. A little bit of burn cannot stop a relentless devil, though. At this point, the two fighters are just exchanging blows one for one. They used punches, headbutts, and every other limb just to do some damage. As soon as Yuan got a good heavy hitter in, he never let up. He jumped on top of the corporal's chest and started wailing on that bitch like an MMA fight with a blind referee. While they were having the final showdown, the warehouse continuously burned. The fire had gotten so big that it was now visible outside. The doctor noted that this place is full of discarded waste oil and flammable chemicals. It's only a matter of time before everything turns to ash. Kim Gi-doo could not bear to wait for his ass to do nothing anymore. He grabbed one of the guns and motioned to head back to the burning structure. Before he could get too far, Miss Sujin urged him not to go and stop trying to be a hero. She put his foot down and gravely told the puny journalist to follow Yuan's wishes and not to interfere. When that boy told them to run to a place he wouldn't be able to follow, he wasn't just being dramatic. Yuan is trying to protect the group from his insatiable self. At this point, the corporal had completely shed his military duty and humanity. Right now, he's just a man trying to beat his only competition as the new god of this apocalyptic hellscape. He thought Yuan was tough, but now it's just a one-sided beating. Still, there's some gas left in our MC's tank. He could still unleash punches you'd see in Dragon Ball Z. Even so, the corporal only derived some sadomasochistic pleasure from being beaten up and beating someone up. While he was raining blows, he thanked his senior for giving him the blood that would change everything. Jo Min-jun was having way too much fun as the warehouse got completely engulfed by flames. Since Yuan is his senior in terms of immunity, this fight might count as insubordination. But who cares? He already betrayed one battalion. What's another one? He picked up Yuan by the collar, completely in control of the battle. Strangely enough, the hungrier he gets, the harder it is to control his strength. He assured Yuan that he's not heading to the afterlife just yet. For some reason, he doesn't feel any appetite for his kin. Thankfully, there are plenty of other flesh dishes to eat nearby. Hearing him blatantly threaten the others, Yuan was jolted awake. He grabbed Jo Min-jun's head like a tight vice grip and made the bastard eat his knee. It was a painful blow that must have mushed the corporal's brain. The sick fuck was actually hyped that the fight was not ending yet. He is having way too much fun going all out with his newfound superhuman strength, and he doesn't want it to stop yet. If possible, he would love to beat each other up until there's nothing left of either one of them. Yuan had left all the yapping to the devil and focused on throwing hands. Those two have been fighting for so long that Dr. Kim has already finished tending to the rookie's wound. He's already bandaged up. Thankfully, the bullet missed any vital organs. It was clean in and out. More than anything, they were lucky to have such a comprehensive medkit on deck. Without the proper tools, tending to the rookie's wound would have been harder. Dr. Kim could tell that the kit was prepared by a professional. In times like this, you have to thank the best girl even though her documents got the gang in trouble. They just have to hope that they won't have to use the premium medkit on Yuan when everything is said and done. Meanwhile, Kim Gi-doo is still struggling with his incompetence while his friend is dancing with the devil. Regaining his resolve to act and help, he stepped forward once more, and Miss Sujin stopped him all the same. This time, they reached the entrance of the warehouse. In the middle of arguing whether to help or not, Kim Gi-doo started hearing a peculiar sound. It sounds like music coming from the other building where they were held against their will. Gi-doo followed the sound, thinking that it might be some sort of ringtone. As he steadily traversed the building, the music became louder and louder. It was coming from a phone sitting snugly on a couch where the soldiers from hell used to hang out. One look was all it took for Gi-doo to recognize Yuan's phone. As soon as he tried to pick the phone up, the ring stopped, and the call was dropped. When he looked at the screen and saw who the missed call came from, his eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. While the journalist was stressing over a phone call, the corporal had secured his mortal enemy in a death grip. Somehow, he lost even more of his clothes through the course of their fight. On the verge of eliminating the only life form that could rival him, Jo Min-jun claimed superiority. It seems like he had already evolved past his predecessor. He's starting to get bored anyway, so he might as well finish the job. He even promised to make it painless as a grateful gesture to his kin. Before punching a hole through Yuan's skull, Kim Gi-doo interrupted and called out his buddy's name. He ran all the way back to the burning warehouse to scream and shout that Yuan's sister called Lee Che is still alive. Upon hearing that string of words, Yuan experienced what seemed like a second awakening because he's the MC and he has to be OP no matter how bad his decision-making is.